Chapter 874. The number of saints had increased rapidly, and now, it had exceeded the 100 mark. However, this didn't make the old ancestors happy. Only God knew how many of these saints would survive after the war. They didn't dare to relax in the slightest. According to the original plan, the Sky River continent had completely sealed off the Sacredine province. There were a total of 3 lines of defense in order to prevent the demon race from easily breaking through the Sacredine sect and spreading the flames of war to the other 3 provinces. Cultivators were constantly sent to the 3 lines of defense in the Sacredine province. Now, there were no less than 1 million Sky River continent cultivators stationed outside the Sacredine province. Of course, there were still more cultivators rushing to the Sacredine province, including Xiao Chen and the others. The outbreak of the war was getting closer and closer, and the atmosphere in the Sky River continent had reached an extremely oppressive level. Everyone had a feeling that a storm was coming. The 3 lines of defense had been completed. Next, the powerhouses of the Sky River continent would also rush to the Sacredine province and have a life-and-death battle with the demon race of the Northern Demon continent. He had already met the Burning Sky ruler and the Pill Cloud ruler. After not seeing them for so many years, the two hadn't changed much. Apart from their cultivation reaching the Saint Realm, everything else was the same as before. This time, the 2 of them were also going to the Sacredine province. After meeting up for a drink, Xiao Chen and the others began to head to the Sacredine province under the arrangement of the saints of the ancient sacred sect. This time, Xiao Chen was riding a warship to the Sacredine province, accompanied by hundreds of thousands of cultivators of the ancient sacred state. The warships were densely packed together, braving the wind and waves as they headed towards the Sacredine province. Just as the Sky River continent was preparing for the war, on the other side, the demon race of the Northern Demon continent had also finished their preparations. The Northern Demon continent was a sealed continent. The entire continent was completely sealed off by an inexplicable energy. No one knew who sealed the Northern Demon continent, but to be able to directly seal off an entire continent, one could imagine how strong this person was. At the very least, it was impossible for a quasi-saint to do so. At the very least, it was possible for a legendary great saint to do so. They couldn't remember how long they had been trapped in the Northern Devil continent. Many of the Devil clan had never left the Northern Devil continent since they were born. Now, suddenly, a space passage broke through the seal and appeared in the Northern Devil continent. How could the Devil clan not be ecstatic? At this time, in an unknown mountain range in the Northern Devil continent, this place used to be a desolate mountain range. But now, it had become the holy land of the Northern Devil continent because there was a spatial passage that was about to take shape. Just like on the Heavenly River continent, in this mountain range, there was also a huge blood gate. Around the blood gate, a large number of demons had already gathered. These demons had set up camp around the blood gate, setting up simple tents in order to wait for the moment when the blood gate was truly formed. The customs of the demons were completely different from the customs of the humans. The demons were very powerful, but their way of speaking was very backward compared to the humans. The demon race still maintained a tribal structure, unlike the human race who had developed countries, sects, and other forces. To put it bluntly, a tribe was similar to the humans' family forces. However, compared to the humans' family forces, the tribes were more backward because the humans' family forces valued bloodline, while the tribes were not. The entire Devil clan on the Northern Devil continent was formed by tribes, and each tribe had a leader. At this time, at least hundreds of Devil clan tribes had gathered around the blood gate, and these tribes were all famous tribes on the Northern Devil continent. In any tribe, there were saints. At this time, at the position closest to the blood gate, there was a huge tent. This tent was almost comparable to a palace. In it, dozens of saints of the Devil clan gathered together. However, sitting on the high seats were 3 devils with fierce expressions. The devils were generally much taller and stronger than the humans. The thinnest devils were at least 2 meters tall, and the stronger ones could even reach 3 meters. At the same time, the devil's skin was greenish-black, and they had sharp teeth. At a glance, they looked extremely ferocious, completely different from the humans. At this moment, in the huge tent, the saints of the Devil clan who were extremely muscular and ferocious sat together in a circle. The 3 devils at the front were clearly their leaders. These 3 devils were also in the saint realm. Their status in the devil race was somewhat similar to the status of the great ancestors in the human race. Looking down from above, one of the devil clan's patriarchs said slowly, "The spatial tunnel is about to open. It's finally time for us to leave this prison." In the eyes of the devils of the Northern Devil Continent, the Northern Devil Continent was a prison that had trapped their ancestors for tens of thousands of years. Now, the sudden appearance of the spatial tunnel gave them hope of leaving this prison, and at the same time, it gave them the taste of blood. As the Devil Clan's patriarch finished speaking, all the saints of the Devil Clan present cheered loudly. Compared to the war, the devils only showed excitement and anticipation. Facing the cheers of the Devil Clan below, the Devil Clan's patriarch continued after a long while. "We don't know where this spatial tunnel leads to, but it doesn't matter. No matter where it leads, it will be trampled under the feet of our Devil Clan. I have decided to enter the spatial tunnel immediately and speed up the opening of the spatial tunnel, catching the other party off guard." The Devil Clan's patriarch was named Shalu, and his cultivation was at the Saint Perfection realm. Hearing his words, the saints of the Devil Clan below did not object and expressed their approval. At this time, the spatial tunnel had not been completely opened, but the devils were already preparing to enter the spatial tunnel and use special methods to speed up the formation of the spatial tunnel. By doing so, they could indeed catch the Sky River continent off guard, but it was also very dangerous. After all, the spatial tunnel was very fragile before it was completely opened, and the slightest carelessness would cause it to collapse. At that time, any living creature inside would definitely die. However, in the face of such a dangerous decision, the saints of the Devil Clan did not have the slightest timidity. They had been imprisoned in the Northern Devil Continent for too long and had long forgotten the taste of blood. Now that they finally saw the hope of leaving, they could not wait to kill their way into the Sky River continent. Seeing that the saints agreed, Shalu nodded slightly, and then selected 10 saints of the Devil Clan and a team of 10,000 elites of the Devil Clan as the vanguard. They entered the spatial tunnel that had not been opened yet. Please collect, please vote, please recommend. Chapter 875. Shalu led 10 demon race saints and 10,000 vanguards into the spatial channel in order to open it up faster. As for the other demon race experts, they would wait for the spatial channel to be fully opened before entering it and heading to the Sky River continent. They didn't know what the demon race was doing, but at this time, the 3 major lines of defense in the Sacredine Prefecture had been set up, and Xiao Chen and the other main forces were on their way there. It could be said that the Sacredine Prefecture's defense shouldn't be a problem. The only thing that was missing was that the Sacredine Prefecture still didn't have an ancestor overseeing it. Some saints had already reached the Sacredine Prefecture, but Randeng Kozai and the other ancestors were moving together with the main force and hadn't reached the Sacredine Prefecture yet. This wasn't because Randeng Kozai and the others were careless, but because they didn't expect the demon race to be so crazy as to dare to enter the spatial channel before it was fully opened. According to normal calculations, the Sky River continent's side would definitely be able to make it in time, but no one expected the demon race to enter the spatial channel before it was fully opened. It was the first time Xiao Chen was riding a warship on the vast sea, and the waves were turbulent as far as the eye could see. Standing on the deck, he was accompanied by Qin Shuru, Fairy of 100 Flowers, and the others. Looking at the sea in the distance, Xiao Chen said faintly, "It's been 7 days, right?" Xiao Chen said that it had been 7 days since they set off from the ancient Sacredine Prefecture. Hearing this, Qin Shuru nodded and replied, "Yes, it's been 7 days. 7 days of sailing, but there was still a considerable distance to the Sacredine Prefecture. At full speed, it would take at least half a month for the warship to reach the Sacredine Prefecture." Now that almost all the cultivators of the 3 major prefectures had been transferred to the Sacredine Prefecture, it was hard to imagine that the entire Sacredine Prefecture would be reduced to ruins in the near future. Xiao Chen was somewhat curious about the real demon race. It was an existence that made countless other races tremble in fear. Back then, the demonic cultivators on the Blood Demon continent worshipped the power of the demon race, which was why they cultivated according to the cultivation methods of the demon race. Xiaochen had already witnessed the power of the devil cultivators. As the object of their reverence, how strong would the real devil cultivators be? Xiaochen had thought about this question more than once. Several hundred battleships sailed on the boundless sea. Time passed day by day, and another 7 days had passed. At this time, the coastline of the Sacredine province could already be vaguely seen from the deck. It was like a huge dragon winding at the end of their line of sight, stretching out in all directions. They had finally arrived. However, they didn't know how many of them would be able to leave the Sacredine province alive after this battle. In order to deal with the demon race, this time, the 3 great sacred sects had mobilized a total of 5 million cultivators of varying cultivation levels to the Sacredine sect. These cultivators were the backbone of the Heavenly River continent, and also the main force to resist the demon race. As they got closer and closer to the Sacredine sect, everyone couldn't help but feel a little nervous. At the same time, at the location where the Sacredine sect was previously, the appearance of the blood door had completely changed. Dense demon chi was constantly being emitted from it, becoming denser and denser by the day. The 3 saints in charge of monitoring the blood door also came to the blood door with a puzzled look on their faces. They stared at the blood door in puzzlement, and one of them said in a low voice, "What's going on? Isn't the transformation of the blood door a little too fast?" "Yes, it hasn't even been a night, and the demon chi has more than doubled compared to yesterday." "It's indeed a little strange," said another saint. The 3 saints all felt the abnormality of the blood door. Just as they were talking, the blood door that was not completely completed suddenly emitted a dazzling bloodlight without any warning. The bloodlight was so dazzling that it was difficult to open one's eyes. However, the 3 saints' expressions changed drastically, and they all exclaimed in unison, "How is that possible? How could the spatial channel be connected so quickly?" The changes in the blood door surprised the 3 saints. As the 3 of them spoke, a group of dark-skinned, tall, strong demons with sharp teeth strode out of the blood door. As these demons walked out, Xia Yelu and the 10 saints also walked out of the blood door one after another and successfully arrived on the Sky River continent. Feeling the unfamiliar continent in front of him, Xia Yelu took a deep breath, then smiled slightly. What a good place! He seemed to like the Sky River continent very much. However, as Xia Yelu said this, a saint beside him whispered, "Sir, is that a human?" Although the demons on the northern demon continent had been imprisoned for tens of thousands of years, it did not mean that they were ignorant of the outside world. After all, many ancient books had been preserved. Therefore, the demons on the northern demon continent also knew that in this world, in addition to the demon race, there were countless other races of different sizes. When they saw the 3 human saints not far away, the saints of the demon race quickly recognized that they were from the human race. There was an introduction to the human race in the ancient books. Hearing the demon saints' words, Shayla looked over and saw the 3 human saints. He smiled and said, "That's right, we're going to fight. It seems that the other party has been prepared for a long time and has sent people to monitor us again. However, we are really lucky to encounter 3 human saints as soon as we arrive. Who will go and take down these 3 human saints for me?" Xia Yelu said indifferently as if he did not put the 3 human saints in his eyes at all. As his voice fell, the 10 saints of the demon race beside him were eager to give it a try, but 3 of them chose to attack without hesitation. The demon race was born to be belligerent. At this time, when they saw 3 human saints, how could they resist the raging battle intent in their bodies? Therefore, without the slightest hesitation, the 3 saints of the demon race launched an attack. Seeing that the 3 of them had taken the initiative to attack, although the other 7 saints of the demon race were cursing, they had no intention of attacking. It was acknowledged that the demon race was bloodthirsty and ferocious, but it did not mean that this race had no redeeming qualities. Among the demon race, they revered the strong, and the strong were respected. The category of the strong was not limited to the demon race. In the face of the strong of other races, the demon race was also very respectful. Therefore, most of the time, the demon race rarely bullied the weak with their numbers. They longed for battle, but they did not like those schemes and tricks. They even looked down on those races that were cunning by nature. This was a characteristic of the demon race. Begging for collection, begging for monthly votes, begging for recommendations. Chapter 876. The demon race was cruel and bloodthirsty, but they also worshipped the strong and hated schemes. To put it bluntly, the demon race was a very straightforward name. They didn't have any tricks up their sleeves and would never hide anything. If they liked to fight, they liked to fight. If they wanted to kill, they would kill. They would not be like other races, who obviously did some sneaky things behind their backs but pretended to be compassionate. This race was referring to the archenemy of the demons, the immortal race. Like the demon race, the god race was one of the most powerful races in the world. However, unlike the demon race, the god race was powerful, but they liked to pretend to be saviors of the world. This made the demon race despise them very much. Perhaps it was because of the nature of the two races that the demon race and the sacred race were destined to be archenemies since birth. They would never be able to coexist peacefully. Seeing the three demon saints attacking them, the three human saints' faces darkened. One of them immediately yelled, "Find a chance to escape and send the news back." The three human saints weren't fools. The sudden appearance of the demon race had made them pale with fright. At the same time, the three human saints clearly sensed that Shayelu and the others were all saints of the demon race. In particular, Shayelu's aura wasn't inferior to the patriarch's. It might even be stronger. Fighting them head-on would definitely lead to death. Moreover, the demon race's early appearance was completely out of everyone's expectations. Therefore, the three human saints' priority was to escape and send the news back to the patriarchs. They wanted to tell them that the war had broken out and that the demon race had used some method to open up a spatial tunnel in advance. Hearing that, the other two human saints nodded silently. Then, the three of them took a step forward at the same time and shot off in different directions. The three demon saints who had attacked first sneered when they saw the three human saints flee without putting up a fight. "Humph, humans, you're really lowly. Fleeing without fighting is simply infuriating. But can you escape?" With that, the three demon saints split up as well, each chasing after a human saint. It was not just the three of them. The other demon saints all looked at the human saint in disdain when they saw him flee without fighting. It was as if fleeing without fighting was an extremely wrong thing to do. Actually, this was also very normal. After all, the two races had different ways of questioning. In the eyes of humans, being flexible was the performance of a smart person. Knowing when to yield and when to stand tall was the performance of a smart person. Knowing that it was impossible but still insisting on doing it, this was idiocy. However, in the eyes of demons, this so-called flexibility was the behavior of a coward. In the world of demons, even if you knew that you would die, even if you knew that you were no match for your opponent, you still couldn't escape. Once you escaped, you would be looked down upon by everyone, including your own relatives and even your parents. There were at least hundreds of tribes on the northern Devil continent. Once you were seen fleeing without a fight, your tribe would not accept you, and your parents would not acknowledge your existence. Because in the eyes of the devil race, they did not need cowards. On the other hand, a demon who was abandoned by his tribe and family would not be able to last long. Compared to humans, demons were obviously stubborn. They knew that it was impossible but still insisted on doing it. This was the biggest difference between the two races. The remaining 7 saints of the demon race all scolded with disdain. Hearing that, Shayla seemed very calm, and there was a faint smile on his face. However, perhaps it was because of his appearance, this smile that seemed very gentle to the demon race was definitely ferocious and terrifying in the eyes of the human race. Shayla said with a chuckle. "Do you know what our demon race thinks of the human race?" As one of the top few demon saints in the northern Devil continent, Shayla naturally knew many things that ordinary demons didn't. Moreover, Shayla had been extremely interested in the countless races in the world since he was young. He wanted to know what exactly was the difference between the different races. Who was superior and who was inferior? Could the devil race be considered a race that truly stood at the top? It was precisely because of this curiosity that Shayla had studied all the major races in the world. Coincidentally, the records of the human race were the most detailed in the ancient ruins of the northern Devil continent. Of course, it wasn't just the devil race. The other races also had a deep understanding of the human race. It could be said that the human race was the race that had been studied the most in detail and thoroughly by all the major races. As for the reason, it was very simple. In the eyes of the other races, the human race was born lowly and could almost be said to have no power to resist. Think about it, if a newborn human was not protected, it was likely that any beast could tear them apart alive. However, it was such a lowly race that was destined to be slaughtered that had become one of the most powerful races in the world. Even powerful races like the devil race, the god race, and the beast race did not dare to start an all-out war with the human race. From this, it could be seen how fearful these races were of the human race. Not daring to look at the few demon saints behind him, Shayla looked into the distance and muttered to himself. I've always felt that the human race is a very respectable and magical race. They're as weak as ants when they're born, unlike the devil race, who has unreachable power at birth. An ancestor of the devil race once said that the human race is like a race that has been forgotten by heaven and earth. They haven't received any blessings from heaven and earth, and they're as lowly as ants. However, such a race that has been forgotten by heaven and earth has forcefully become one of the most powerful races in the world with its own efforts. It's so powerful that even the devil race doesn't dare to look at it lightly. I've studied the cultivation methods of the human race. Compared to ours, the cultivation methods of the human race are hundreds or thousands of times more difficult. Apart from the devil race, almost all the other races can become powerhouses in the end as long as they don't die. However, the human race is different. If they want to become stronger, they can only continuously break through their limits and seek the experience between life and death. I've always felt that the human race is like a ferocious beast trapped in a quagmire that could be devoured at any time. In order to avoid extinction, the human race has been struggling and resisting with all their might. It seems like a dying struggle, but in the process of struggling, the human race has unknowingly become so powerful that no other race dares to underestimate them. Moreover, it seems that even heaven and earth have begun to pay attention to them, making up for the only shortcoming of the human race. You should have heard that there are already a few people in the human race who have the bloodline power, right? They call it the bloodline of the sacred race. Begging for collection, begging for monthly votes, begging for recommendations. Chapter 877. Shayla said slowly in a calm tone. At this moment, he didn't seem to be as ferocious and violent as a member of the demon race. Instead, he seemed more like a wise old man who had experienced the vicissitudes of life. Shayla knew a lot about the human ancestor, but he didn't expect that the spatial passage would lead to the world of the human race. Upon hearing his words, the 7 demon saints beside him fell silent. They all knew what Shayla meant by the bloodline of the sacred race. Compared to other races, the greatest difference between humans and other races was the power of their bloodline. Regardless of whether it was the demon race, the god race, or the beast race, they were all born with the power of their bloodline, which made their cultivation much easier. However, the human race was different. According to the ancient records, the human race didn't have the power of their bloodline a long time ago. Because of this, every step of the human race's cultivation could be said to be extremely difficult. However, after the continuous efforts of the human race's ancestors, a small portion of the human race possessed the bloodline of the sacred race. Although the power of their bloodline couldn't be compared to that of other races, it was already a very shocking thing. Once the power of the human race's bloodline evolved again and became as powerful as the demon race, the sacred race, and the beast race, the human race would be unimaginably terrifying. The human race was a lowly but extremely magical race. They were born lowly but would never admit defeat. They created miracles time and time again. This simple sentence was Shayla's evaluation of the human race. After hearing Shayla's words, the demon saints didn't dare to underestimate the human race. Indeed, such a lowly race had relied on their own efforts to become one of the most powerful races in the world. Facing such a race, as long as one wasn't a fool, one wouldn't underestimate them. As soon as Shayla finished speaking, the 3 demon saints returned one after another. However, 2 of them returned empty-handed, and only one of them brought back the corpse of a human race saint. 2 of the 3 human saints managed to escape while the last one committed suicide. Perhaps because he didn't want to become a captive of the demon race, he chose to commit suicide when the demon race saint caught up to him, knowing that he was no match for the demon race. The demon saints all had strange expressions on their faces when they saw the corpse of the human saint. They would rather die than submit. All of a sudden, the demon saints who had looked down on the human saint began to have different thoughts. Shayelu said flatly as he came to the corpse of the human saint and stared at it silently. "Send the corpse back. He's a brave warrior. His corpse shouldn't be left in the wilderness. Send the body of the human race saint back." The demon saints had no objections when they heard that. Afterwards, 2 demon saints took the human saint's corpse and headed towards the human army. Their objective was very simple. They were not going to attack. They were only going to see the human saint's corpse and bring it back. The demon race revered the strong and would give enough respect to true brave warriors. Of course, ants were not included. After the 2 demon saints left, Shayelu began to order people to build walls around the blood gate. Knowing that they were about to face the human race, Shayelu's battle intent was burning in his heart. 10,000 demon race elites quickly set up tents and fortifications of various sizes, completely taking control of the blood gate. At the same time, the other 2 human saints who had successfully escaped did not hesitate at all. They immediately sent news of the demon race's early invasion to the various patriarchs. Randang Kozai and the other patriarchs were still leading the human army towards the Sacredine sect. They had already reached the sea near the Sacredine sect and would be able to reach the shore in at most a day. However, the patriarchs were the first to receive news of the demon race's invasion. After hearing the news, the patriarch's expression turned grave and they immediately led people to the Sacredine prefecture. The early invasion of the demon race caught everyone off guard. The patriarchs did not hide the news and it quickly spread among the people. Hearing that the vanguard of the demon race had already arrived in the Sacredine prefecture, everyone's heart clenched. After preparing for so long, the war was finally about to begin. The spatial channel had been completely opened, and there was no doubt that more demon race would descend on the heavenly river continent. At that time, the human race and the demon race would engage in a life-and-death battle in the Sacredine prefecture. The patriarchs led all the saints to the Sacredine prefecture, while the rest of the human army went to different camps according to the previous plan. A total of 3 lines of defense were set up in the Sacredine sect to prevent the demon race from leaving the Sacredine sect. In addition to these 3 lines of defense, the human race also built 6 camps. These 6 camps were where the human army gathered and were also the vanguard against the demon race. As for the 3 lines of defense, their main purpose was to seal off and defend against the demon race's surprise attack and prevent the demon race from leaving the Sacredine prefecture. According to the plan, at least 1 million human cultivators gathered in each of the 6 camps, and these people were the strength of the human race against the demon race. The culmination camp, the soaring camp, the tsong camp, the gum camp, the quenching camp, and the chen camp. These 6 camps were located in the 6 corners of the Sacredine prefecture, forming a triangle. At this time, in the Zhongtian garrison, everyone had already received news of the demon race's arrival. It was believed that all the human cultivators who had arrived at the Zhongtian garrison were on high alert, as they did not know when the demon race would attack. Furthermore, the reinforcements of the human army had yet to arrive, and the 6 garrisons were not fully fortified, and were currently at their weakest. They carefully guarded against all the attacks of the demon race, but soon, the human cultivators in the culmination camp did not receive an attack from the demon race. Instead, they received the corpse of the human race saint. Shayelu ordered the human saint's body to be sent back, and the 2 demon saints really did send the human saint's body to Zhongtian's encampment. A corpse fell from the sky, and everyone in the culmination camp quickly recognized that it was a saint from the Heavenly Saint sect. A saint was killed? For a moment, all the human cultivators in the culmination camp were shocked. The demon race had just arrived, and they had already killed a human saint. Besides feeling shocked, all of them were extremely furious as well. Because Qin Shi had killed a saint as soon as he arrived. In their opinion, it was no different than a naked declaration of war. War was unavoidable, and the actions of the demon race had completely enraged the human cultivators in the culmination camp. Of course, it was not only the culmination camp, the other 5 camps would also receive the news very soon. Begging for collection, begging for monthly votes, begging for recommendations. Chapter 878. The news that a human saint's corpse had been thrown into the Zhongtian encampment quickly spread throughout the 6 encampments. No one had expected that a human saint would be killed in such a short period of time. As expected, all the human cultivators were agitated, and their fighting spirit was completely aroused. Saints, in normal times, were the top figures in the Sky River continent. However, such a great figure was killed in less than half a day after the arrival of the devil race. This action of the demon race had thoroughly angered the human side. At the same time, Randeng Kozai and the other ancestors had also hurried to the Sacredine province with the human saints. They had also heard the news. Damn it, this old man must slaughter these beasts. The human race and the demon race will not rest until one of us is dead. Hearing this news, even the saints were unable to restrain their anger. Although the ancestors didn't say anything, it wasn't difficult to see from their expressions that they were also extremely furious. Although the fall of a saint wouldn't have much of an impact on the direction of the entire war, after all, there were hundreds of saints on the human side at this time. However, the demon race had killed a human saint as soon as they arrived. In the eyes of the human race, this was undoubtedly a declaration of war. According to the previous plan, the saints went to the 6 encampments to prepare for the attack of the demon race, while Randeng Kozai and the others went directly to the Zhongtian encampment. The various patriarchs and more than 20 saints arrived. Everyone saw the saint's corpse. Looking at the corpse in front of him, Prime Saint Ice Lotus' face was gloomy. This person was an elder of his Heavenly Saint sect, and was previously in charge of monitoring the movements of the Blood sect. Send him back to the Heavenly Saint sect and let his family bury him. Under the lead of the various patriarchs, everyone bowed to the fallen saint. Then, Ancient Saint Ice Lotus spoke. The war had already broken out, and such things would definitely not be rare in the future. Now was not the time to grieve here. Since the demon race had appeared, the war had already begun. The human side was preparing intensely. Half a day later, Xiaochen and the rest of the troops finally arrived at the Sacredine sect. According to the division, Xiaochen, Long Qing, Qinling, Qinshuru, 100 Flower Fairy, Guling Yao, and hundreds of thousands of cultivators from the ancient sacred province were assigned to the Zhongtian encampment. According to the ancestors' thoughts, the 6 encampments were basically equivalent to 6 war zones, and Xiaochen and the others were equivalent to being assigned to the Zhongtian war zone. Of course, in addition to Xiaochen, the Zhongtian Emperor Qing and Emperor Qinyu, the Zhongtian War. With the arrival of the human army, the atmosphere in the Sacredine province was tense to the extreme. The 6 encampments of the human race were crowded with people, and everyone was in a hurry. All kinds of medicinal pills, talismans, and weapons needed for the war were constantly being transported to the 6 encampments. While the human side was mobilizing their troops, the demon race was not idle either. After killing the Heavenly Saint sect saint, Sha Yilu did not order an attack. Instead, with the Blood sect as the center, they began to build heavy defensive fortifications and dense tents around the Blood sect. This was the base camp of the demon race when they attacked the Heavenly River continent. With the construction of the encampment, the follow-up demon race troops also arrived at the Heavenly River continent through the space channel. At first, there were only 10,000 demon race soldiers, but after half a day, more demon race soldiers appeared on the Heavenly River continent. At this time, at least 1 million demon race soldiers had gathered in the ancestral land of the demon race. The number of demon race saints had reached nearly 100, and 4 old ancestors had arrived. Both sides were constantly concentrating their forces in the Sacredine province, and the atmosphere was getting more and more solemn. A few days later, the human side was ready. The human cultivators in the 6 encampments, as well as various medicinal pills and talismans, were all ready. At this time, in the Zhongtian encampment, Randang Kozai and the other old ancestors were sitting together, discussing the next move. "I suggest that we strike first and gain the upper hand. We can't give the enemy any more time to breathe," Prime Saint Tianyang said. The demon race had just arrived on the Heavenly River continent, and there were still many preparations that had not been completed. This time, Prime Saint Tianyang strongly urged the human race to take the initiative to attack and catch the demon race off guard. Hearing Prime Saint Tianyang's words, Randang Kozai and the other 2 old ancestors nodded in agreement. Prime Saint Tianyang's words were not wrong. They should strike first and gain the upper hand before the demon race completely gained a foothold in the Sacredine province. They didn't expect to defeat the demon race in one fell swoop, but at least they had to tell them that the Heavenly River continent was not a duck in their mouth that they could eat whenever they wanted. Moreover, this battle could also greatly boost the morale of the human cultivators. These days, Randang Kozai and the others felt that many people were still afraid of the demon race. This was not a good thing. Being afraid before the battle was a big taboo. They had to break the fear of the demon race, so this battle was imperative. However, although they had decided to strike first and gain the upper hand, how were they going to fight? After some discussion, the 4 old ancestors finally decided that this battle was just a probing battle. The Zhongtian encampment and the Soaring Sky encampment would be in charge. The 2 encampments would dispatch 200,000 people and 5 saints. The purpose was not to defeat the demon race army, but to tell the other human cultivators that the demon race was not invincible and to boost their morale. After determining the goal of this battle, the 4 old ancestors also understood that this battle must not be fought too deeply. They could only attack the periphery of the demon race's encampment. On one hand, it was to boost the morale of the human cultivators. On the other hand, it was also to test the combat effectiveness of the demon race. After all, the Heavenly River continent had never fought with the demon race. Even the 4 old ancestors did not know the strength of the demon race. After finalizing the battle plan, the next day, the 4 old ancestors gathered the saints of the Zhongtian encampment and the Soaring Sky encampment and told them the whole battle plan. Hearing that they were going to take the initiative to attack the demon race's encampment, the human saints were not the slightest bit timid. Instead, they were all very excited. The final preparations had been completed, and the human cultivators of the 6 encampments could attack at any time. After preparing for so long, the saints naturally wanted to go all out and fight the demon race. They wanted to see how insufferably arrogant the demon race was. Seeing the high morale of the saints, the 4 saints were naturally very gratified. It was a good thing to have a fighting spirit, and it was an indispensable condition for victory. Immediately, the 4 old ancestors began to mobilize the troops. The Zhongtian encampment and the Soaring Sky encampment each sent 10 saints and 200,000 cultivators to attack the demon race's encampment. Please add, please vote, please recommend. Chapter 879. In the face of the demon race, the 4 ancestors decided to take the initiative and launch a surprise attack before the demon race gained a firm foothold in the Sacredine province. Firstly, it would dampen the arrogance of the demon race, secondly, it would raise the morale of their side, and thirdly, it would test the depth of the demon race. According to the information obtained in the past few days, the demon race had gathered an army of 3 million soldiers around the Blood Gate. In terms of numbers, the demon race was naturally smaller than the human race. However, according to the information, the demon race was still coming out of the Blood Gate. In other words, the demon race's army had yet to fully arrive in the Sacredine province. With so many people stationed together, the area of the demon race's encampment was naturally huge. Not only did it occupy the entire Sacredine sect, but it even spread out for hundreds of miles in all directions. Looking from afar, the simple and crude appearance of the encampment was indeed astonishing. Compared to the Sky River continent, the demon race had come from afar, so they were naturally not as well prepared as the Sky River continent. Therefore, the plan of the four ancestors was quickly finalized. 10 saints were selected from the culmination and soaring sky encampments. Moreover, because this was the first confrontation with the demon race, the cultivators selected were all elites. For example, in the culmination encampment, after the 10 saints were finalized, Xiaochen, Qinyu, Emperor Qing, Qinling, Long Qing, Qin Shuru, Fairy of 100 Flowers, Gu Ling Yao, and others were all selected to participate in this battle. Although they were young, their strength was not inferior to the experts of the older generation. It was not an exaggeration to say that no one below the half-saint realm was a match for Xiaochen and the others. Even in the face of a half-saint, Xiaochen and the others all had their own means to escape. Moreover, it was especially so for Qinyu and the Qing Emperor. Even the saints were unable to determine exactly what level their strengths had risen to. However, some had guessed that Qinyu and the Qing Emperor probably possessed the strength to kill half-saints. To put it simply, only saints could kill Xiaochen and the others now. Even if a half-saint could not defeat them, Xiaochen and the others could definitely escape unscathed. Therefore, even though Xiaochen and the others were from the younger generation, their strength could already be considered as the backbone of the human clan. With such strength, there was no way he could escape from this operation. The four old ancestors had already said that this was the first battle, and they could only win. Even if it was a small victory, they absolutely could not lose. Because once they lost, the human race's fear of the demon race would be infinitely magnified. At that time, once the demon race launched an attack, the human race was likely to collapse without a fight. Fully aware of the importance of this battle, the 20 saints in charge of this battle did not dare to be the slightest bit careless. Almost all the people they had deployed were the most elite warriors in the two camps. They wanted to raise the morale of the human race and let all the human race warriors know that the demon race was not invincible. They personally met with the Tianfeng Saint. The Tianfeng Saint would also participate in this battle as one of the 10 saints in the Zhongtian camp. In the Tianfeng Saint's residence, Xiaochen, Qinyu, and the Qing Emperor sat together in a circle. The Tianfeng Saint looked at the three of them. The Tianfeng Saint explained the entire plan to them. At the end, he said with a chuckle, "This is the first battle between us and the demon race. Its significance is self-evident. The three of you must not let your guard down." Having completely understood the significance of this battle, Xiaochen and the others nodded slightly. Then, the Tianfeng Saint said with a smile, "Okay, go and prepare. We will leave tonight." The purpose of this battle was to catch the demon race by surprise, so speed was the key. After leaving the Tianfeng Saint's residence, Xiaochen returned to his residence. He called Qinling, Long Qing, and Qin Shuru. Everyone made some preparations and then secretly left the Zhongtian camp. In order not to be discovered by the demon clan in advance, the 400,000 practitioners from the two garrisons were divided into 20 small troops, and each small troop was led by a saint. This battle was to break up the whole into parts. Under the command of the saints, the 20 small troops would fight on their own. They did not need to act as one, nor did they need to attack together. They would find an opportunity to attack and retreat when they had an advantage. The troop that Xiaochen and the others were in was led by the Tianfeng Saint. This was actually arranged by the Tianfeng Saint. The entire troop had a total of 20,000 people. Without waiting for the other troops, the Tianfeng Saint directly led everyone out of the Zhongtian camp and rushed in the direction of the demon race's camp. Everyone would fight on their own. As a result, the routes that the saints chose were naturally different, and the places that they ultimately chose to attack were also different. The route that the Tianfeng Saint chose was to cross the thriving Thousand Mountain Range and then arrive at the southeast edge of the demon race's camp before launching an attack. Due to the continuous expansion of the demon race's camp, the Saintine sect had become the command center of the demon race. The saints and ancestors of the demon race were now living in the Saintine sect. With the serene sect as the center, the encampments that spread out in all directions had already stretched for hundreds of miles. Therefore, it was not difficult to launch a sneak attack on the periphery. Of course, the demon race would definitely have saints guarding the periphery of the encampments. Traveling day and night, everyone moved very quickly and carefully, not daring to leave any traces behind. 3 days later, the troop that Xiao Chen and the others were in finally passed through the thriving Thousand Mountain Range. They could already see the demon race's encampment from afar. Xiao Chen and the others had already arrived at the encampment of the demon race, and the other troops had also arrived at their predetermined attack positions. They did not choose to attack during the day. Instead, they waited until night. The sky gradually darkened, and starlight shone on the ground. At this time, the Tianfeng Saint and the 20,000 human race cultivators who were hiding in the dark finally began to move. The Tianfeng Saint changed his elegant appearance from before, and a cold light flashed in his eyes. Everyone, the demon race has invaded, and this battle is inevitable. Today is our first battle with the demon race. In this battle, only victory is allowed. Kill! Following the Tianfeng Saint's furious roar, the 20,000 human race cultivators drew their weapons and raised the sharp blades in their hands as they shouted, "Kill!" Accompanied by the battle cries, the human race martialists seemed to have descended from the sky and charged out of the darkness. The demon race, who had not been prepared at all, walked out of their tents in confusion after hearing the earth-shattering battle cries. However, what they saw was tens of thousands of human race martialists, who were brimming with killing intent, charging into their encampment. Begging for collection, begging for monthly votes, begging for recommendations. Chapter 880. Under the cover of the night, an elite army of 20,000 human race experts pierced into the encampment of the demon race like a sharp GNE. The outermost devil race cultivators did not even have the chance to react before they were killed by the human race cultivators. The devil race cultivators at the back rushed out of their tents when they heard the battle cries. However, they saw the human race cultivators attacking them. The demon race was indeed a natural warmonger. After a brief moment of shock, many demon race cultivators quickly recovered from their shock and joined the battle with the human race cultivators. This was a camp on the outskirts of the demon race's ancestral land. There were about 10,000 demon race cultivators here, and it could be considered as the outpost of the demon race's encampment. It was also because of this that the Tianfeng Saint set the target of the attack here. The mission of this battle was to completely destroy this encampment of the demon race. The demon race, who had recovered from their shock, quickly regrouped and engaged in a fierce battle with the human race. At this time, the two sides were like two huge savage beasts, clashing head-on in the most blunt way in the darkness. The battle broke out and blood splattered everywhere. Xiao Chen and the others rushed to the front and were the first to come into contact with the demon race cultivators. It was the first time they had seen a demon race cultivator. The tall and strong figure, greenish-black skin, and ferocious face were indeed daunting. But even so what? Their fighting spirit had been ignited, and they had no other choice but to fight. Xiao Chen led the human race cultivators into the demon race's encampment. Soon, they encountered the demon race cultivators. They slashed out with the black dragon sword in their hands, and their eyes flashed with a strong killing intent. In the face of Xiao Chen's attack, the demon race cultivator in front of them roared and took the initiative to attack. The figures of the human race and the demon race cultivators were everywhere. Compared to the demon race cultivators, who were about 3 meters tall, the human race cultivators were indeed a little thin. But so what? Facing the demon race cultivators, the human race cultivators did not have the slightest hesitation. They fought fiercely with the demon race cultivators with the sharp blades in their hands. Xiao Chen didn't have the leisure to pay attention to other people's battles. This was the first time that he had encountered a demon. At this time, Xiao Chen discovered that this demon's body was indeed tough. It was almost comparable to a human body refining martial artist. Moreover, this was not an exception. The bodies of all demons were much stronger than that of humans. Perhaps this was an innate advantage of the demons. Relying on this kind of body, the devil race's fighting style was direct and crude. They didn't need to practice martial skills like the human race to increase their attack power. The devil race didn't need this, they could rely on their terrifying body to display the same might as martial skills. The toughness of the physical body brought 3 benefits to the demon race. The first was their great strength, the second was their strong defense, and the third was their vigorous vitality. There was no need to explain more about strength and defense. The meaning of vigorous vitality was also very simple. For example, if a human race and a devil race suffered the same serious injury, the human race might die, but the devil race wouldn't. Even if you gave them enough time, the devil race could slowly recover by themselves. In addition to the physical body, the cultivation methods of the devil race and the human race were completely different. Although they both refined the spiritual chi of heaven and earth, after the human race refined the spiritual chi of heaven and earth, they condensed it in their dantian and then transformed it into spiritual power. However, the devil race was different. The devil race was born with a devil heart. When the spiritual chi of heaven and earth entered the devil race's body, it would be instantly transformed into devil chi. This was also the source of the devil race's power. Spiritual power and devil chi were the biggest differences between the human race and the devil race. However, they both came from the spiritual chi drifting between heaven and earth. Every devil race member was surrounded by a dense black chi, which looked extremely terrifying. However, at this time, Xiaochen had completely ignored this. One by one, the devil race members died under Xiaochen's sword. Perhaps it was because this was only the outermost camp, so the cultivation of the devil race members here was not too high. At least, among the devil race members that Xiaochen had encountered along the way, the one with the highest cultivation was only in the Dao Gate realm. With such a huge gap in cultivation, no matter how strong the devil race's physical body was, they could not pose any threat to Xiaochen. The ink dragon sword in his hand was completely stained with blood. Xiaochen's terrifying fighting spirit naturally attracted the attention of many devil race members. Knowing that this was a powerhouse of the human race, 5 devil race members attacked Xiaochen at the same time, completely surrounding him. At such a young age, human, you should be the so-called genius of the human race, right? One of the devil race members who surrounded Xiaochen said with a ferocious expression. Hearing this, Xiaochen shook the ink dragon sword lightly, and the blood on the sword was immediately flung away. Then, Xiaochen said indifferently. Genius? Sorry, I'm not. Seeing that Xiaochen was not the genius that the human race was talking about, the 5 devil race members were slightly stunned. However, Xiaochen obviously did not give them a chance. With a move of his feet, he directly executed the stampede of the tiger and immediately took the initiative to attack. Among the 5 devil race members, the highest cultivation was only in the Dao Gate realm, and the lowest was only in the Dao Confirmation realm. To Xiaochen, they were no threat at all. Therefore, even though he was surrounded by the 5 devil race members, Xiaochen was not nervous at all. With a slash of his sword, he attacked one of the devil race members like a sudden clap of thunder. This was the Thunderclap 9 swords. Back then, Xiaochen had exchanged for a heaven-grade upper martial skill in the ancient Saint sect. After so many years, Xiaochen had finally cultivated it to the transformative stage. As a heaven-grade upper martial skill, there was no need to doubt the power of the Thunderclap 9 swords. With a slash of the sword, it was like a bolt of lightning descending, instantly incinerating the devil race member into nothingness. As one of the most powerful heaven-grade upper martial skills in the ancient Saint sect, the Thunderclap 9 swords was very powerful. At the same time, it was also very difficult to cultivate. This was also the reason why Xiaochen had taken so many years to successfully cultivate the Thunderclap 9 swords. It was not a tough battle, and the 5 devil race members were quickly killed by Xiaochen. When the last devil race member had its legs chopped off by Xiaochen and collapsed in front of Xiaochen, Xiaochen said indifferently. I'm not the so-called genius that you all are talking about, because a genius is nothing in my eyes. As soon as he finished speaking, a sword light flashed, and the devil race member's head flew into the air. Xiao Chen was indeed not a genius, because a genius was nothing in Xiao Chen's eyes. The difference was too great. After killing the 5 devil race members, the number of devil race members that had died under Xiao Chen's sword had reached dozens. Looking up at the sky, Tianfeng Saint was fighting fiercely with 3 half-saints from the devil race. They should be the leaders of this camp. However, even though it was 3 against 1, the 3 half-saints from the devil race were still no match for Tianfeng Saint. Begging for collection, begging for monthly votes, begging for recommendations. Chapter 881. The 3 half-saints of the devil clan besieged Tianfeng Saint at the same time. However, judging from the current situation, Tianfeng Saint still had the absolute advantage. It should not be a problem for him to kill the 3 half-saints of the devil clan. It seemed that there was only one step between a half-saint and a saint, but the gap was absolutely exaggerated. Therefore, it was almost impossible for the 3 half-saints of the devil clan to defeat Tianfeng Saint. However, these devil clan members were really good. None of them chose to escape when they were attacked by surprise. Every one of them chose to fight to the death, which surprised Xiao Chen. The battle was still going on. Not only Xiao Chen's camp, but the rest of the devil clan's encampment was also attacked by the human clan. There were a total of 20 encampments. On this night, 20 encampments outside the encampment of the devil clan were attacked by the human clan. The attack was still going on, but the resistance of the devil clan was getting weaker and weaker. There were only 10,000 devil clan members in this encampment, and there were no experts guarding it. The strongest ones were only the 3 half-saints of the devil clan. However, Tianfeng Saint had already killed one of them, and there were only 2 half-saints of the devil clan left. Even one of the 3 half-saints had been killed. Therefore, the devil clan below was even less likely to be a match for Xiao Chen's group. It should be known that in order to ensure that nothing would go wrong, the 20 troops sent by the Zhongtian encampment and the Soaring Sky encampment were all experts of the human clan. They were the real elites. In terms of numbers, strength, and cultivation, they were far superior to the devil clan. Therefore, there was naturally no problem in attacking this encampment. The attack was launched in the middle of the night. Now, the sky was gradually brightening, and dawn was about to arrive. At this time, the battle was nearing its end. There were only a few sporadic battles that had not ended. At this time, Tianfeng Saint, who had already killed the 3 half-saints of the devil clan, looked down at the people who were still fighting fiercely below and shouted in a deep voice, "Quick, the devil clan's reinforcements are coming. Let's retreat after we finish them." Although this was a surprise attack launched by the human clan, after this fierce battle, the devil clan's reinforcements should be arriving soon. They had to retreat before the reinforcements arrived. Although this was a great victory, the Tianfeng Saint was still very clear-headed and didn't let such a victory get to his head. It seemed that humans had destroyed 20 demon camps in just one night. However, it should not be forgotten that these 20 camps were almost dispensable for demons. Additionally, the demons that were killed in the encampment were not powerhouses. Their cultivations were very low. Therefore, this victory was more significant than boosting the morale of humans. Meanwhile, it let humans know the power of demons. Because he had personally experienced all of this, the Heavenly Wind Saint did not feel too happy about the victory. He urged everyone to end the battle as soon as possible and then quickly retreat. Hearing the Tianfeng Saint's words, the people below didn't dare to relax. They quickly ended the battle and left the place. In this battle, Xiao Chen's team had killed 10,000 demons, while they had only lost 12. Such a victory could definitely be considered a great victory. They retreated all the way back to the prosperous mountain range. Just as the Tianfeng Saint, Xiao Chen, and the others had retreated, the devil clan's reinforcements arrived as expected. They were led by a devil saint. There weren't many of them, only a little over 1,000. However, they were extremely powerful because the weakest among them was at the Tao Emperor realm. It had happened so suddenly, and more than one camp had been attacked. Therefore, the devil clan couldn't gather an army to rescue them in a short period of time. They could only transfer their powerhouses to the encampment that had been attacked. Unfortunately, although the Devil clan had reacted immediately, they were still a step too late. Looking at the completely destroyed encampment below and the scattered corpses of the demons, the Devil clan's saint who was the leader had a gloomy expression. After a while, a half-saint from the Devil clan came to the Devil clan's saint and reported respectfully. 10,000 demons. All of them were killed without exception. The 10,000 demons in the encampment were all killed. Not a single one of them was left alive. The humans had long disappeared. When he heard the half-saint's report, the half-saint of the Devil race was so angry that he started laughing. He revealed an extremely terrifying smile. Interesting. Looks like Lord Shailu was right. The humans really can't be underestimated. We haven't even made a move, but they've made a move first. The Devil clan's saint sneered. As soon as he finished speaking, he instructed the half-saint beside him. I'll leave this place to you. After he finished speaking, he didn't wait for the half-saint to reply. He took a step forward and disappeared on the spot. In one night, 20 encampments were attacked by the humans. Moreover, without exception, all the demons in these 20 encampments were killed. Not a single one of them was left alive. In the face of the attack launched by the humans, Shailu and the other 3 Devil clan patriarchs gathered in the Devil clan's encampment that was originally in the Saintine sect. However, there wasn't the slightest trace of seriousness or nervousness on their faces. Perhaps it was just as the Tianfeng Saint had thought. This attack actually had no effect on the Devil clan at all. At most, it would be a blow to their morale. Therefore, although more than 200,000 demons had died, the foundation of the Devil clan wasn't damaged at all. Sitting together, one of the Devil clan patriarchs looked at Shailu and chuckled softly. Shailu, you're right. The humans really didn't give up without a fight. In fact, as early as a few days ago, Shailu had said that the humans definitely wouldn't give up without a fight, nor would they cower because of the invasion of the Devil clan. In the face of the Devil clan, the humans would only rise up and resist. His words were successful. Hearing the words of the demon race patriarch, Shailu smiled slightly. A race that is destined to fight against the heavens from the moment they were born naturally wouldn't give up without a fight. It's normal. Shailu felt that it was normal for the human race to attack him. Upon hearing this, the other 3 demon race patriarchs smiled and nodded. Finally, one of the demon race patriarchs stopped smiling and said calmly. In the words of humans, it's impolite not to reciprocate. Now that humans have given us such a great gift, it would be unreasonable if we don't reciprocate. Shailu, you know humans best. I'm afraid that you'll have to lead the first battle. Show humans the power of demons. Shailu said with a smile. That's right. The humans had just launched a surprise attack on the Devil clan, and the Devil clan quickly decided to counterattack. The Devil clan patriarch who was in charge of this counterattack was naturally the Devil clan patriarch, Shailu, who knew the humans the best. Please collect, vote, recommend. Chapter 882. With the surprise attack of the human race, the war between the 2 races had truly begun. After the 4 demon ancestors discussed it, Shailu was also responsible for the counterattack against the human race. Both races had millions of people. A battle of this scale would naturally not be decided in a short period of time. No matter who it was impossible to defeat the other party in a single bite. This was something that both the Devil race and the human race were very clear about. After the meeting ended, the 4 demon patriarchs left one after another. Shailu also returned to his residence. However, as soon as he stepped into the courtyard, 4 young demon patriarchs strode toward him. After bowing respectfully to Shailu, the 4 young demons said with a smile on their faces. Ancestor, how is it? Are you going to attack the human race? Based on their appearances, it seemed like they couldn't wait to attack the human race since a long time ago. Moreover, it wasn't difficult to discern from their auras that 3 of them were at the Dao Emperor realm while the weakest was at the perfection stage of the Dao King realm. They really weren't weak. Moreover, in addition to their cultivation, the aura of the four people was very dense. Obviously, they were not ordinary Tao kings or Tao emperors. In fact, this was indeed the case. These four young demons were known as demon sons in the northern demon continent. In terms of status, they were equivalent to the holy sons of the Tiana continent. Their status was noble, and their combat power was very strong. This time, these demon sons and daughters of the demon race naturally followed them to attack the Tiana continent. Although the appearance of the demon race and the human race were completely different, and their aesthetics were also completely opposite, facing these four demon sons, even from the perspective of the human race, they were indeed handsome. Of course, this was in terms of the appearance of the demon race. Compared with the human race, these four demon sons were still considered ferocious. Looking at the four demon sons, Xia Yelu smiled and said, "Sha Mo Xiong, Sha Mo Ling, Sha Mo Cheng, Sha Mo He, why are you four boys here?" Xia Yelu was very doting towards these four demon sons. It couldn't be helped, these four little guys were the descendants of Xia Yelu, and they were the most outstanding descendants. In the demon race, blood relations were basically used as a medium. There was no master-disciple relationship like the human race. Sha Mo Xiong and these four demon sons were the descendants of Xia Yelu. Hearing his ancestors' words, Sha Mo Xiong, who was the oldest, said respectfully, "Ancestor, we heard that the human race launched an attack last night and defeated 20 camps of our demon race in one fell swoop, so we specially asked the ancestor to let us four brothers." Initially, Shamisen wanted to tell Shayla bluntly that they wanted to lead a team to attack the human race. However, before he could finish, Shayla waved his hand and stopped him. "We still have to come up with a plan at this time. Don't worry, when it's time for you to act, you will naturally step aside." Shayla was already in charge of the counterattack against the human race. However, he didn't act rashly. After all, the human race was well prepared. The 3 lines of defense and the 6 garrisons weren't easy to break through. If he attacked rashly, he might end up worse off. Besides, since the human race dared to launch a surprise attack, they would definitely be on guard against the revenge of the demon race. Therefore, it wasn't advisable to touch them rashly. Xia Yelu was scheming and astute, but Sha Mo Xiong and the other 3 juniors weren't so scheming. The demon race was pure to begin with. After hearing Xia Yelu's words, the youngest of the 4 brothers, Sha Mo He, grabbed Xia Yelu's arm and said with a fawning expression, "Ancestor, the human race has already taken the lead. Are we just going to let it go? Let us go. We definitely won't embarrass the ancestor. We will definitely kill all the human race." Amongst the 4 brothers, Sha Mo was the youngest, and his cultivation was the lowest as well. He was only at the perfection stage of the Tao King realm. However, amongst the 4 brothers, Sha Mo was the one that Xia Yelu doted on the most, and only he dared to speak to Xia Yelu in such a manner. The reason was very simple. Sha Mo He was more talented than his 3 elder brothers. Even Xia Yelu had said that if Sha Mo He could continue to grow, his future achievements would definitely not be inferior to him, the patriarch. Xia Yelu wasn't angry when Sha Mo pulled him. Instead, he patted Sha Mo's head affectionately and said with a smile, Okay. The ancestor promises you that when the time comes, I will definitely give you a chance to perform and let you take the lead. Is that okay?" "Really? Thank you, ancestor." Sha Mo He was overjoyed. Sha Mo He was indeed very proud of his 4 outstanding juniors. They had never embarrassed him before. Therefore, Sha Mo He intended to let the 4 of them take the lead in this counterattack against the human race. His purpose was also to train the 4 of them. Accompanied by the 4 brothers, Sha Mo He walked into the courtyard. This courtyard was originally the residence of a disciple of the Sacredine sect, but it had now become Sha Mo He's residence. When the 3 sacred sects joined forces to attack the Sacredine sect, they had indeed destroyed all the cave residences of the Sacredine sect. However, many courtyards were left behind. After all, there was nothing special about these courtyards and the 3 sacred sects were too lazy to destroy them. They were left behind and now became the residences of the various saints, ancestors, and demon sons and daughters of the demon race. Of course, ordinary demons could only live in simple tents. Sha-mo he didn't know the reaction of the demon race, but just as he guessed, after activating their aura, Randeng Kozai and the others had indeed begun to guard against the counterattack of the demon race. The 6 garrisons were all in a state of combat readiness. They were strictly guarding against the counterattack of the demon race, but the strange thing was that after 3 days, the demon race didn't react at all. Even after the Tianfeng Saint and the other 20 teams returned safely to the Zhongtian and Soaring Sky garrisons, the demon race didn't do anything. It was a very strange move, but Randeng Kozai and the others didn't dare to be careless in the slightest. While strengthening the defenses of the 6 garrisons, Randeng Kozai and the others also gathered the Tianfeng Saint and the other saints who had participated in this battle. Although this surprise attack on the demon race was a great victory and also greatly boosted the morale of the human race, Randeng Kozai and the others were most concerned about the demon race. Previously, their understanding of the demon race was basically based on the records of various ancient books, and they hadn't really come into contact with them. Now, after the first battle, Randeng Kozai and the others also wanted to understand the situation of the demon race from the Tianfeng Saint and the others. Xiaochen, Longqing, Chenling, and Qin Shuru returned to their residence, and the Tianfeng Saint and the others did indeed come to the main hall of the Zhongtian garrisons. Here, Randeng Kozai was already waiting. Begging for collection, begging for monthly votes, begging for recommendations. Chapter 883. Randeng Kozai, Prime Saint Bing Lian, Prime Saint Mingjie, and Prime Saint Tianyang sat on the main seats. The Tianfeng Saint and the other saints who had participated in the battle bowed to them respectfully. Randeng Kozai didn't mind. He waved his hand and went straight to the point. This battle was good. It was a complete victory. I believe that after this battle, you should have a deeper understanding of the demon race, right? Let's hear it. This battle was only a test in the hearts of the 4 great ancestors. Now, they wanted to hear whether the Tianfeng Saint and the others had any new opinions about the demon race after fighting head-on with them. After everyone was seated, one of the saints took the lead to speak. This time, when we attacked the outer camp of the demon race, we didn't encounter any saint of the demon race. However, we did fight with a half-saint of the demon race. If you ask my opinion, the demon race shouldn't be underestimated. They are very strong, the saint said very seriously. His evaluation of the demon race was very simple. It was a very powerful race and shouldn't be underestimated. As this saint spoke, the other saints present all chimed in one after another, and all of them expressed their views on the demon race. However, all of them were pretty much the same. Finally, the Tianfeng Saint was the last to speak. He looked at Randeng Kozai and said solemnly, "Master, what you said earlier is correct. There is no exaggeration at all. In terms of disciples, at the same cultivation level, the human race is no match for the demon race. Unless you are a core disciple of the 3 sacred sects, the human race is indeed weaker than the demon race at the same cultivation level. However, after last night's battle, this disciple has also realized that the strength of the devil race is innate. Our human race can gradually make up for this gap through cultivation. However, if we want to truly fight with the same level, I'm afraid that only the sage realm can truly make up for this innate gap, let alone those geniuses of our race." The Tianfeng Saint's words were more detailed. The demon race was innately stronger than the human race, and it was only possible to make up for this gap by reaching the saint realm. Of course, the Tianfeng Saint was talking about ordinary warriors on both sides. Saints like Xiaochen and the demon race were obviously not included in this list. It was difficult for the human race to contend with the demon race at the same cultivation level. After hearing the Tianfeng Saint's words, Randeng Kozai and the other 3 fell silent. After a while, Randeng Kozai spoke. "How do you all think we should solve this problem?" The Tianfeng Saint and the others looked at each other. Finally, the Tianfeng Saint stood and replied. There's no other way, we have no choice but to fill the gap. We can't defeat the demon race at the same cultivation level 1-to-1. We can't defeat the demon race at the same cultivation realm, instances. The human race was innately weaker than the demon race. This was something that couldn't be changed. Therefore, if they wanted to fight the demon race, they could only make use of their advantage in numbers. Otherwise, if both sides had the same number of people, the human race's chances of winning would be less than 30%. This was the answer given by the Tianfeng Saint and the other saints who participated in this battle. The more they knew about the demon race, the more pessimistic the situation became. However, there was still good news apart from this piece of bad news. The gap would be completely closed after reaching the saint realm. In other words, a human saint wouldn't be weaker than a demon saint at the same cultivation level. This was the most important point. If a human saint wasn't a match for a demon saint at the saint realm, then it would really be over. If that was the case, it would be useless even if they used numbers. If even a saint couldn't withstand the demon race, what could the people below do? This was still a piece of good news. After hearing the words of the saints, Randang Kozai and the other three sighed secretly. It seemed that the demon race was indeed not easy to deal with. The saints were discussing the next layout in the main hall, while Xiao Chen and the others were chatting in the courtyard. After such a great improvement, everyone had a rare chance to relax. However, although they were chatting, almost all of the topics were related to the demon race. It wasn't just the Tianfeng Saint who sensed the strength of the demon race. Xiao Chen and the others also felt the same. Sitting together, Chenling said faintly, "It seems that it won't be easy to defeat the demon race." Yes, in terms of individual strength, the demon race is indeed much stronger than the human race. In fact, in terms of understanding of the demon race, no one in the entire Tianhe continent could compare to Chenling. This was because it wasn't his first time coming into contact with the demon race. Therefore, Chenling was very clear about the strength of the demon race. At the same time, he also understood that if the human race wanted to defeat the demon race, they would have to pay a terrible price. In Chenling's hometown, someone once said that if the human race wanted to defeat the demon race, they would have to pay at least twice the price. This was already the lowest price. In other words, in order to defeat 1 million demon race members, the human race would have to have at least 2 million people. Moreover, their cultivation had to be equal to the demon race's. Otherwise, it would be impossible to succeed. 2 human race members were needed to defeat 1 demon race member. This was already the most ideal result. Don't think that this was an exaggeration. Often, this requirement was not met. Many times, 3 human race members were needed to defeat 1 demon race member. Hearing Chenling's words, Xiao Chen could not help but laugh bitterly. He knew that Chenling's words were true. Although Xiao Chen faced these demons this time, it was as if he was cutting melons and vegetables. However, the cultivation of these demons was low to begin with. Naturally, they were not a match for Xiao Chen. However, after a real battle with these demon race members, Xiao Chen finally realized how terrifying the demon race was. Their physical body was one aspect, but what was more terrifying was the demon race's belligerence. If it was the human race that suffered such a sneak attack, they would have been defeated directly without any preparation or organization. However, the demon race did it. Instead of being defeated, they even put up a resistance in the shortest time possible. Although they were still defeated in the end, it showed the demon race's belligerence and bravery. The demon race was a race that would not retreat. It was as if they did not know what fear was. Such a race was often the most terrifying. In Xiao Chen's opinion, the demon race's innate strength was secondary. What was truly terrifying was the demon race's character. The belligerence and bravery that came with their bones was the most troublesome thing for the human race. Thinking about it, this time, Xiao Chen's team attacked the demon race's camp and wiped out all the demon race members in the camp. What did this mean? Did it mean that the human race was powerful? That was not the case. It meant that none of the demon race members chose to escape. Every demon race member chose to fight to the last moment. Facing a race that did not know how to escape, it was indeed very difficult to defeat them. This was what Xiaochen was most worried about. Begging for collection, begging for monthly votes, begging for recommendations. Chapter 884. After fighting with the demon race, Xiaochen finally experienced the demon race's belligerence. It was as if they were a race born to fight. In terms of culture and development, the demon race was far inferior to the human race. The demon race's current level of culture was like that of the human race tens of thousands of years ago. There were no cities in the demon race, only villages and villages. It was these villages and villages that formed the entire social system of the demon race. On the other hand, the human race not only had sects and empires, but they also had numerous large cities and flourished trade and economic activities. This was the development of the two races. As for other things, the demon race could not compare to the human race. For example, the restaurants and inns in the human race's cities were probably unheard of by the demon race. The demon race's level of civilization was much lower than the human race's, but their combat power was far superior to the human race's. Perhaps this was the fundamental difference between the two races. The demon race was not greedy for pleasure, or it should be said that fighting was the greatest enjoyment for them. After chatting casually, Xiaochen finally asked curiously, "Big brother, where's your hometown?" All along, both Xiaochen and Longqing were very curious about where Qinling's hometown was. This was because Xiaochen found out that Qinling was not only familiar with the demon race, but also seemed to be very familiar with the god race and other races. This made Xiaochen very curious. Hearing Xiaochen's words, Qinling smiled and said, "There's no rush. You'll know in the future. Moreover, my hometown is also second sister's hometown." He did not answer Xiaochen's question, but Qinling still said that he and Longqing's hometown were actually from the same place. Hearing this, Xiaochen was even more confused. However, seeing Qinling like this, even if he continued to ask, he would not say anything. No one knew what this fellow was thinking. All this time, Qinling had kept his mouth shut about everything about his hometown. He only told Xiaochen. When the time came, he would naturally know. Regarding this, Xiaochen was displeased, but there was nothing he could do. Seeing Xiaochen's displeased pout, Qinling smiled and said, "All right, let's think about how to deal with the demon race. This time, we will give them a surprise attack. With the demon race's character, I believe they will take action very soon." "Really? But it's already been 3 days, and there's still no movement from the devil race." Longqing was puzzled when he heard that. "Don't worry, they'll definitely come, and it won't be small." Hearing Longqing's words, Qinling smiled confidently, as if he had already seen through everything. Of course, Qinling naturally could not see through what the demon race was thinking. The main reason why he was so sure was because he was familiar with the demon race. Therefore, he was sure that the demon race would not remain indifferent. In the first attack, the human race won a great victory. This victory greatly boosted the confidence of many human race warriors. At the same time, on the other side, the demon race did not move at all for several days. This was not because they were afraid, but because they were preparing and planning a great battle. At this moment, in Shaiyelu's residence, a total of 50 demon race saints gathered together. Everyone sat in a row in the hall, and Shaiyelu naturally sat in the main seat. This time, the other 3 demon race patriarchs had handed the decision to Shaiyelu. At this moment, after several days of preparation and investigation, Shaiyelu was finally ready to take action. Sweeping his gaze across the 50 demon race saints below, Shaiyelu asked indifferently, "How is it? Is everything in place?" "Sir, don't worry. The 6 armies have already arrived at the designated positions. As long as you give the order, we'll be able to attack the 6 encampments of the human race in an instant." After hearing the words of this demon race saint, it was obvious that Shaiyelu's counterattack this time was not for fun, and that was indeed the case. The human race had ambushed 20 encampments of the demon race. This time, Xiaolu only wanted to take down one of the encampments of the human race. It had to be said that Xiaolu's appetite was indeed huge. The 20 encampments of the demon race that the human race had ambushed were nothing at all. They were only the peripheral encampments of the demon race. But now, Xiaolu actually wanted to take over one of the human race's encampments. It was self-evident what this meant. Xiaolu wanted to use this battle to deal a heavy blow to the human race. One had to know that the 6 encampments of the human race were not only heavily guarded, but there were also many small encampments set up outside each encampment. These encampments protected the encampments in the middle so that when the demon race attacked, they would be able to discover it immediately and stall for time so that the main forces of the human race in the encampments would have time to prepare. This arrangement was very normal, and so was the demon race. Therefore, the human race only destroyed some of the encampments in the periphery and did not dare to go deep. Now, Xiaolu's target was not those encampments, but one of the 6 encampments. It had to be said that he was really greedy to want to take down one of the encampments in one go. Hearing that everything was ready, Xiaolu looked at the map in front of him. It was a map of the Holy Yin Prefecture, and the locations of the 6 encampments of the human race were clearly marked on the map. After confirming the locations of the 6 encampments of the human race, Xiaolu fixed his gaze on the Zhongtian encampment and said coldly, "This time, we are mobilizing 2 million people, of which 1 million are stationed in the Zhongtian encampment, and they are all warriors of the demon race. Remember, the other 5 encampments are just feints to distract the human race. The real target is the Zhongtian encampment, and we must take it down, understand?" "Sir, don't worry, we will not disappoint you." Hearing that, the 50 demon saints present all nodded respectfully. This time, they were attacking the 6 encampments of the human race at the same time, but apart from the Zhongtian encampment, the rest were just feints to confuse the human race. After distracting the human race, they would attack and take down the Zhongtian encampment. Even if they could not take down the Zhongtian encampment, according to Xiaolu's plan, they would at least destroy half of the human race's forces in the Zhongtian encampment. The plan had been set, and the demon race troops had already arrived at the designated location. Afterward, Xiaolu waved his hand and said, "Go, we will take action tomorrow morning." After confirming the time of action and hearing Xiaolu's words, the demon saints retreated respectfully. At the same time, Xiaolu's face turned solemn. He knew that his plan was very bold, but at the same time, it was also very greedy. Wanting to swallow up the human race's Zhongtian station in one fell swoop was definitely not a simple matter, and his actions had undoubtedly set off a fierce struggle between the demon race and the human race. Begging for collection, begging for monthly votes, begging for recommendations. Chapter 885. If the previous surprise attack of the human race was just a small skirmish, then the action of the demon race this time was a real outbreak of war. 2 million troops had been invested in this operation, and there were 1 million eternal demons lying in ambush around the culmination station. Judging from the total number of demons that had arrived in the Holy Yin province, Xiaolu had already mobilized more than half of the demon race's forces in this battle just to take down the Zhongtian station in one bite. Xiaolu did not make a move, and neither did the other 3 demon ancestors, because they knew very well that their tasks in this battle were to command the overall situation and deal with the ancestors of the human race. The battle had just begun, and now was not the time for the ancestors of both sides to fight to the death. Moreover, it was not easy to kill an ancestor. Xiaolu did not make a move. On the other side, Randang Kozai and the other 3 ancestors were no longer in the Zhongtian station, but went to the central command post. In addition to the 6 stations and 3 lines of defense, the human race had also built a central command post. This central command post was located behind the 6 stations. No matter from which direction, if one wanted to attack the central command post, they would have to break through at least one of the human race's stations to get close. Therefore, there were no strong guards in the central command post, and this was where Randang Kozai and the other 3 ancestors would only fight. Perhaps some people would ask why Randen Kozai and the other three ancestors did not directly join the battle at the front line, but instead built such a central command post. In fact, it was not difficult to understand. First of all, Randen Kozai and the other three ancestors were the strongest humans in the Sky River continent, and they were responsible for commanding the overall situation. It should be known that an army without people was like a blind man, and could not have any combat power at all. Secondly, if Randen Kozai and the other three ancestors rashly went to the battlefield, they could indeed play a great role, but on the contrary, they were likely to be surrounded and killed by the demon race. And once any one of the four ancestors was killed by the demon race, the consequences would be absolutely unimaginable. Not only would the morale of the human race be greatly affected, but the deterrence of the demon race would also be greatly reduced. Therefore, whether it was the ancestors of the human race or the demon race, they would not easily take action. At least, when the whereabouts of the other party's ancestors were unknown, they would not easily participate in the occupation. Don't think that the ancestors were invincible in the world. In the battle intent of hundreds or even tens of millions of people, the strength of an individual was very insignificant. Not to mention the ancestors, even quasi-sages. If you were surrounded by hundreds of thousands of the demon race army. In the face of such a large-scale battle, the ancestors were not only powerful, but more importantly, they were a symbol to their own side and a deterrent to the enemy. They had already returned to the central command post, and the saints were guarding the 6 garrisons. The sun slowly rose on a seemingly peaceful morning. The many human race cultivators in the Zhongtian garrisons also woke up from their cultivation as usual and began their daily routine. Everything was the same as usual. Not only the Zhongtian garrisons, but also the other garrisons around the Zhongtian garrisons. However, it was on this seemingly ordinary morning that the demon race army made their final preparations 100 miles away from the Zhongtian garrisons. They gave up attacking from all 4 directions at the same time and went straight to the Zhongtian garrisons. This time, the 25 saints of the demon race were in charge of attacking the Zhongtian garrisons. At the same time, Xiao Maxiong and the other demon race heirs also appeared. They were obviously going to participate in this battle. Everything was ready. In the 4 directions of the Zhongtian garrisons, the 4 armies of the demon race were rubbing their fists, and the leading demon race saints also shouted loudly. "Brave warriors of the demon race, let us fight to our heart's content today. Kill!" Following the simple command of the demon race saints, the demon race soldiers' fighting spirit was completely ignited. Their battle cries shook the sky, and then the figures of the demon race soldiers soared into the sky, quickly rushing in the direction of the Zhongtian garrisons. The Zhongtian garrisons were located in the east of the Sacredine prefecture. They were built on a plain, and there were no dangerous places to defend. Perhaps it was because of this that Xia Yilu set his sights on the Zhongtian garrisons. After all, compared to the Zhongtian garrisons, the other 5 garrisons of the human race were all easy to defend and hard to attack. They had a geographical advantage. Only the Zhongtian garrisons were built on a plain. In fact, the human race couldn't be blamed for not thinking it through. They really had no other choice. The east of the Sacredine prefecture was an endless plain, and there was no place to defend. If they didn't build the Zhongtian garrisons here, it meant that the east of the Sacredine prefecture would be undefended, and the demon race could break through the blockade at any time. Left with no other choice, the human race could only grit their teeth and build the Zhongtian garrisons on the plain. Like the demon race before, the human race cultivators in the Zhongtian garrisons were also caught off guard. Just as the sun slowly rose, and its rays shone on the earth, the outermost circle of the Zhongtian garrisons was suddenly attacked by the demon race army. In the quiet morning of a human race camp guarded by 10,000 people, a surge of demon chi suddenly swept over from the horizon. Soon, everyone saw countless demon race soldiers rushing over from the horizon. In an instant, the human half-saint in charge of guarding the camp knew that the demon race's attack had arrived. However, when he saw the densely packed demon race army in the sky, the human half-saint was still shocked. Just by looking at the number of devil race soldiers, Yan Kai could tell that there were at least 200,000 of them. With such a large-scale attack, it was impossible that they would stop at just one camp. The target of these devil race soldiers was most likely the central sky camp. It was impossible for them to mobilize over 200,000 soldiers for a mere camp guarded by 10,000 people. Seeing the demon race army getting closer and closer, the human half-saint didn't hesitate to roar to the people beside him. "Quick, prepare to meet the enemy. Also, light the smoke signal. Quick." Begging for collection, begging for monthly votes, begging for recommendations. Chapter 886. In a large-scale battle, smoke signals were definitely the most effective and fastest means of communication. It seemed simple, but in fact, it was even more useful than sound transmission talismans. Just like now, in the face of the demon race's attack, the camp immediately lit up smoke signals. Black smoke soared into the sky and could be seen even from hundreds of miles away. At the same time, the human cultivators in the camp were also engaged in a fierce battle with the demon race. At this time, not only this camp, but also from all four directions of the Zhongtian encampment, the demon race launched an attack almost simultaneously. There was no doubt that a mere camp could resist the demon race's army of more than 200,000 people. Although after the previous surprise attack, the morale of the human race had indeed been greatly boosted, but after facing the demon race, there were still a few people who were completely scared out of their wits. The camp was devastated, and in less than an hour, the first camp was breached by the demon race. Without stopping, the demon race army continued to attack the Zhongtian encampment. While the demon race army was constantly breaking through the layers of defenses of the Zhongtian encampment, the saints in the Zhongtian encampment had already seen the smoke signals in front of them. Smoke signals soared into the sky from all directions. At this time, the saints guarding the Zhongtian encampment had urgently summoned the human cultivators in the camp to reinforce the encampment in the four directions and stop the demon race's attack. Many saints had already rushed to the front line, and in the main hall, the Tianfeng saint and the other two saints also informed Randang Kozii and the other three ancestors of the Zhongtian encampment through sound transmission talismans. After receiving the news of the Zhongtian encampment being attacked, the four ancestors quickly replied, but this reply made the faces of Prime Saint Tianfeng and the others even more solemn. According to the news from the ancestors, not only the Zhongtian encampment, the other 5 encampments of the human race were also attacked by the demon race at the same time. Is the demon race planning to start an all-out war? Are they staking it all on one throw? One of the saints asked after hearing the reply. Impossible. It's absolutely impossible to take down all 6 bases at the same time. It's impossible for the demon race to do that. Another saint immediately rejected that guess. The demon race was indeed powerful, but the Sky River Continent's human race wasn't a duck on the chopping board. Therefore, the demon race knew that it was impossible for them to take down the human race's 6 bases in one go. Therefore, the demon race must have some other purpose for doing this. Of course, the human race had yet to realize that the other 5 bases were just feints. This time, the demon race's real target was the Zhongtian base. Just like what the saint said, the demons knew that they couldn't take down the 6 stations of the human race in one go. Therefore, Sha Yelu's target was only the Zhongtian station. As long as they could take down the Zhongtian station, they would have accomplished their goal. He didn't know what the demon race was planning, but now was obviously not the time to think about such things. The demon race had already launched a large-scale attack, and by now, many of the camps outside the Zhongtian camp had already been destroyed by the demon race. The news from the front lines was not optimistic at all. Let's go, now is not the time to think about this. Blocking the attack of the demon race is the most important thing. After hearing the words of the 2 saints, the Tianfeng saint said. Then, the 3 saints directly disappeared from the hall and rushed to the front lines. The human race cultivators in the Zhongtian station were split into 4 groups, each of them heading off in 4 different directions. This time, the demon race's army was attacking from all directions. The camps outside the camp obviously couldn't stop them. Only the army of the Zhongtian camp could resist them. Like the others, Xiaochen and the others were also on their way to help. Together with them, there were 6 saints and more than 200,000 cultivators of the human race. It could be said that their momentum was extremely great. The distance of dozens of kilometers was not too far, so in less than an hour, Xiaochen and the others met the demon race army head-on. The sky was densely packed with figures. The total number of people on both sides had already reached 500,000, and this was only one of the battlefields. Looking at the large number of demon race soldiers opposite them, a trace of seriousness appeared on the faces of all the cultivators of the human race. The counterattack of the demon race was indeed too sudden, and their attacks were extremely ferocious. From the time they received the news to the time they rushed over to help, the response of the Zhongtian camp was already very fast. It took less than 2 hours, but in this short period of time, the demon race army had already broken through 5 camps of the Zhongtian camp, and this was only the result of one demon race army. The 2 armies faced each other. Both sides were led by saints, so there was no need for unnecessary words. The saints of both sides looked at each other and then shouted coldly and angrily at the same time. Kill! This battle was no longer a small skirmish like before. It could be said that it was the first direct battle between the human race and the demon race. Accompanied by the angry roars of the saints of both sides, the human race and the demon race army charged at each other at the same time, like a torrent of steel, fiercely colliding with each other. In the human race army, Qin Shuru and the other 2 girls were by Xiaochen's side. As for Qinling and Long Qing, they had gone to another battlefield and were not with Xiaochen. Be careful. In such a chaotic battle, Xiaochen naturally could not take care of everything, so he reminded the 3 girls to be careful. Hearing Xiaochen's words, the 3 girls nodded. They were not vases, and their strength was not much weaker than Xiaochen's. The moment the 2 armies collided, Xiaochen and Qin Shuru were instantly separated. At this moment, Xiaochen had already charged into the demon race army. Indeed, the skilled were bold. Xiaochen did not care about being surrounded by the demon race. He held the ink dragon sword tightly in his hand. When the demon race saw that a human like Xiaochen dared to charge into the army, they all charged forward with overflowing killing intent. Xiaochen charged straight into the army of the devil race. He did so to reduce the pressure on the other human warriors. Before coming, the Tianfeng Saint had told Xiaochen that in terms of individual strength, the human race was indeed weaker than the demon race. Therefore, in order to ensure the victory of this battle, the Tianfeng Saint hoped that Xiaochen could attract more of the demon race's attention. Xiaochen was not an ordinary human cultivator. Even if he faced a demon race cultivator of the same cultivation level, he would not have any problems. Therefore, if Xiaochen could attract more demon race cultivators, it would greatly reduce the pressure on the other human cultivators. Xiaochen did not refuse the Tianfeng Saint's decision. Although it was very dangerous, with Xiaochen's strength, it was absolutely no problem for him to escape if he could not win. Unless a demon race saint intervened, otherwise, even a half-saint would not be able to stop Xiaochen. Begging for collection, begging for monthly votes, begging for recommendations. Chapter 887. Xiaochen alone attracted the firepower of at least 100 devil warriors. Not only him, but also Qin Shuru and the other 2 women. They were all outstanding talents of the human clan, so they naturally had to work harder than ordinary warriors. There was no other way. Compared to the devil clan, the human clan was already at a disadvantage. They could only make full use of the powerful fighting strength of the human clan's geniuses to make up for it. The human race was a very polarized race. Ordinary warriors were very weak, but geniuses like Xiaochen were very strong. Unlike the devil race, the strength of the devil race was generally very equal, except for the devil race. The strength of the devil race was not very strong, but it was also not very weak. Because of this, ordinary humans were no match for the devil race at all. Furthermore, geniuses like Xiao Chen and the others were able to kill the devil race even though they were at a higher level. Therefore, geniuses like Xiao Chen had to put in more effort to fight against the devil race. The more devil race they killed, the less pressure the humans would feel. Surrounded by hundreds of devils, Xiao Chen did not change his expression at all. He slashed out with the black dragon sword in his hand and directly used the Thunderclap 9 swords. He used a killing move as soon as he attacked. This was a battlefield, not the usual martial arts arena in the sect. On the battlefield, the only goal was to kill the enemy in front of you as soon as possible without wasting your own spiritual power. The reason was very simple. The martial arts arena was a one-on-one battle, so fairness was important. On the battlefield, you had to face not only one enemy, but thousands of enemies. There was no fairness on the battlefield. Only results in life and death were important. Therefore, fighting on the battlefield was completely different from fighting in the martial arts arena. The most important point of fighting on the battlefield was how to kill the most enemies with the least consumption. Therefore, those flashy martial arts skills were not suitable on the battlefield at all. There was nothing fancy about it. Every slash of the sword carried an incomparably dense killing intent. With every slash of the sword, a demon would fall along with it. At this moment, the 1-meter-long sword in his hand seemed to have become the scythe of the Grim Reaper. In the face of such a big battle, Xiao Chen was not the least bit timid. Instead, he appeared very experienced. Even those semi-saints could not compare with him in this aspect. This was not the first time Xiao Chen was involved in a war. Back in the Heavenly Chen continent, Xiao Chen had personally experienced a war with demonic cultivators. Although there was no way to compare that war to this one, Xiao Chen was no stranger to war. It was also not his first time on the battlefield. Therefore, Xiao Chen was much more experienced in handling various matters. Lightning flashed everywhere. Every strike of the Thunderclap 9 swords was accompanied by a sudden flash of lightning. Don't underestimate these lightning flashes. They were extremely powerful. Even if a demon of the same realm as Xiao Chen was hit by one of these lightning flashes, he would definitely be seriously injured even if he didn't die. It had to be said that this time, the army of the devil race was clearly not comparable to the army of the devil race in the previous encampments. The difference in strength was like heaven and earth. If it were those devils in the outer encampments, Xiao Chen would have already killed them like chopping melons and vegetables. But now, after a bitter battle, Xiao Chen only killed more than 20 devils. It could be seen that these devils were indeed not weak. This time, the devil army in charge of attacking the Zhongtian encampment was an elite army arranged by Xia Yelute. Every devil was a brave warrior. Their cultivation was much higher than the devils in the outer encampments. It was precisely because they were facing the real elite army of the devil race that the human clan was under great pressure. Not only Xiao Chen, but also the other saints. At this time, they were fighting fiercely with the devils. Both sides were equally matched. However, as Tianfeng Saint said, once one reached the saint realm, the gap between the human clan and the devil clan would be completely closed. Therefore, it seemed that the battle between the saints would not end in a short time. Xiao Chen was not worried about the result of the battle between the saints. Xiao Chen was only thinking about the matter at hand at this time. This was to be expected. In a battle of such a scale, Xiao Chen alone would not be able to change anything. Instead of thinking about those irrelevant things, he would rather focus on his own task. After all, every time he killed a demon, it meant that the human race would have one less enemy. Xiao Chen did not pay any attention to what was going on in other places at all. All he could think about was the battle before him. As the battle continued, more and more of the hundreds of demons that had besieged Xiao Chen died. Although these devils were not weak, there was still a gap between them and Xiao Chen. More and more devils died under Xiao Chen's sword. At the same time, Xiao Chen's battle attracted the attention of a devil. Just like Xiao Chen, this devil was also killing human clan warriors. Ordinary human clan warriors were no match for this devil. After smashing the human clan warrior in front of him with a punch, the devil turned to look at Xiao Chen with a glint of fighting spirit in his eyes. Interesting. With that, the devil rushed toward Xiao Chen without hesitation. Originally, Xiao Chen was going to kill a devil with a single slash, but at the last moment, he was blocked by this devil who rushed toward him rapidly. Seeing this devil, the other devils' faces changed slightly. Then, they saluted respectfully and called out, "Devil Son." That's right, this devil who rushed toward him was one of the 4 devil sons of Sha Yilu, Sha Mo. Among the 4 devil sons of Sha Yilu, Sha Mo was the youngest and had the lowest cultivation level. However, he was the most talented. Like Xiao Chen, Sha Mo's cultivation level was at the complete Dao Master realm. After blocking Xiao Chen's attack, Sha Mo shouted coldly, "Get out of here." Hearing this, the surrounding devils did not dare to complain. In an instant, they dispersed and went to find other opponents. Soon, only Xiao Chen and Sha Mo were left standing facing each other. Xiao Chen felt pressure from Sha Mo. This devil in front of him was obviously different from the other devils. At least in terms of strength, they could not be mentioned in the same breath. Xiao Chen felt that Sha Mo was different, and Sha Mo also felt that Xiao Chen was different. At the same time, Sha Mo vaguely guessed Xiao Chen's identity. Sha Mo revealed a sinister smile and said with a chuckle, "I heard that the top figures of the human clan are called Holy Sons. You should be one of them, right?" Sha Mo had heard of the Holy Sons. Judging from Xiao Chen's combat strength, Sha Mo guessed that Xiao Chen should be one of the Holy Sons of the human clan. In an instant, Sha Mo was full of fighting spirit. He was called the Devil Son and was one of the top figures of the Devil clan. Therefore, he naturally wanted to compete with the Holy Sons of the human clan. Please collect, vote, recommend. Chapter 888. Sha Mo's eyes flickered with battle intent. It had always been the wish of the 4 of them to battle with the Holy Son of the human race. After all, the 4 of them were already at the peak of the younger generation of the demon race. There were only a handful of demons who could be compared to them. As the strongest of the younger generation of the demon race, Sha Mo naturally wanted to see just how strong the Holy Sons of the human race were. He wanted to see just how much of a difference there was between them and the demon sons. Hearing Sha Mo's words, Xiao Chen shook off the blood on his ink dragon sword and replied indifferently, "Looks like I'll have to disappoint you. I'm not the Holy Son of the human race." Xiao Chen did not have much interest in the title of Holy Son. After all, it was just a title without any real use. Although everyone in the ancient sacred sect already believed that Xiao Chen possessed the strength of a Holy Son, and many disciples had even begun to privately call Xiao Chen the 5th Holy Son of the ancient sacred sect, Xiao Chen had never admitted it. Seeing that Xiao Chen did not admit that he was the Holy Son of the human race, Sha Mo did not get angry. He only smiled faintly. The human race is just a hypocrite. However, it doesn't matter if it's true or not. Human, let's fight. Sha Mo did not care that Xiao Chen did not admit that he was the Holy Son of the human race. What he valued was Xiao Chen's strength. It was because of Xiao Chen's strength that Sha Mo urgently wanted to battle with Xiao Chen. As for his status in the human race, Sha Mo did not care. As soon as he finished speaking, Sha Mo took the initiative to attack. He took a step forward and his body turned into a shadow. In the blink of an eye, he appeared in front of Xiao Chen. Then, he threw out a punch. His fist was shining with a black light. The demon race did not know any martial skills. All of their attacks could be said to be the most ordinary attacks. For example, Sha Mo's simple step forward was extremely fast. However, it was not a martial skill. In the face of Sha Mo's attack, Xiao Chen did not just sit there and wait for death. He slashed out with his sword, using Thunderclap 9 swords. The sword light collided fiercely with Sha Mo's fist. The fist and the sword light collided violently, and a terrifying aftershock spread in all directions. In an instant, all the humans and demons who were fighting around the two of them were sent flying. For a moment, there was no one left within a radius of 500 meters around the two of them. The two sides who were still fighting fiercely were suddenly blasted away. At this time, everyone realized that Shao Qin and Sha Mo were already engaged in a fierce battle. The demons couldn't help but lock their gazes onto the two of them. Devil Son Samabrown. The demon race was naturally very respectful towards Sha Mo, but similarly, when the human race saw Shao Qin, their faces also revealed a hint of hope. Just like the demon race's reverence for Sha Mo, the human race's reverence for Shao Qin came from the bottom of their hearts. Holy Son Shao Qin. At this time, a disciple of the ancient sacred sect involuntarily called out. Moreover, the way they addressed Shao Qin had already completely become the Holy Son of the ancient sacred sect. The Holy Son and Demon Son finally clashed. After that, no one dared to approach Shao Qin and Sha Mo. Of course, even if they wanted to, it was difficult for them to approach the two of them. After all, the aftershock of their battle was just too terrifying. At the very least, one would need a cultivation at the Tao Emperor realm to be able to withstand it. At the same time, Shao Qin and Sha Mo began to fight fiercely. In the sky, figures intersected, and there were endless sonic booms and aftershocks that spread out in all directions. There were a total of 4 battlefields in the Zhongtian encampment. At this time, Shao Qin had already clashed with Sha Mo. The situation in the other 3 battlefields was similar. Soldier against soldier, general against general, saint against saint, half-saint against half-saint, Holy Son against Demon Son. On the western battlefield, the battle here was equally fierce. The Qing Emperor was also clashing with a Demon Son. The Demon Son that the Qing Emperor was clashing with was called Sha Mo Ling. He was Sha Mo's second brother. The two of them stood proudly in the sky. The Qing Emperor's face was still calm, and his innate domineering aura unconsciously spread out. Sensing the Qing Emperor's domineering aura, Sha Mo Ling said with overflowing battle intent, "Human Holy Son, I finally have a chance to fight with a human Holy Son. Don't disappoint me." "I won't disappoint you, because you're going to die here today," the Qing Emperor said indifferently. With that, without waiting for Sha Mo Ling's reply, the Qing Emperor chose to mature, and the two of them began to fight fiercely. Just like the Qing Emperor and Shao Qin, Qin Ling and Qin Yu also clashed with the remaining Sha Mo Xiong and Sha Mo Cheng. Qin Ling fought fiercely with Sha Mo Cheng, while Qin Yu fought fiercely with Sha Mo Xiong. As the eldest of the 4 brothers, Sha Mo Xiong, who was fighting against Qin Yu, was the strongest. However, Sha Mo Xiong did not have the upper hand against Qin Yu. After a fierce battle, Sha Mo Xiong's fighting spirit soared. At the same time, he clearly realized that the Holy Son of the human race was indeed worthy of his reputation. Compared to the devil sons of the demon race, he was indeed not inferior. On the battlefield where Qin Yu was, the disciples and deacons of the ancient sacred sect were actually a little surprised. This was because this was the first time that they had seen Qin Yu fight seriously. In the past, when Qin Yu faced a battle, he would hide as much as he could. If he could not hide, he would drag it out as long as he could. Anyway, he did not want to put his life on the line. In his words, what was life? Wasn't it better for everyone to be harmonious? As usual, Qin Yu was lazy. However, this time, he did not escape because he had no choice. His opponent was the demon race, and he had no reason to escape. It was precisely because of Qin Yu's rare seriousness that the crowd finally witnessed the true strength of the number 1 Holy Son of the ancient sacred sect. It was only at that moment that the crowd realized that Qin Yu's reputation as the number 1 Holy Son of the ancient sacred sect was not undeserved. Alas, why did the demon race come to the Heavenly River continent? This time, I really can't fool you. After successfully blocking Sha Mo Xiong's punch, Qin Yu pretended to sigh helplessly. Without waiting for Sha Mo Xiong's reply, Qin Yu's body suddenly erupted with a terrifying wave of spiritual energy. Looking at this wave of spiritual energy, it seemed that he had reached the initial stage of the Tao Emperor realm. This was the first time that he had truly erupted with his power. That terrifying pressure made even a half-step saint have no choice but to retreat. This was the true strength of the first Holy Son of the ancient sacred sect. Haha, interesting. Human holy son, you really didn't let me down. Come on. In the face of Qin Yu's terrifying pressure, Sha Mo Xiong was not afraid. On the contrary, he laughed out loud. As his laughter fell, Sha Mo Xiong did not retreat. Instead, he took the initiative to attack Qin Yu. Begging for collection, begging for monthly votes, begging for recommendation. Chapter 889. Qin Yu was indeed very scary when he got serious. It was no wonder that even a proud person like Emperor Qing was willing to submit to Qin Yu. It was rare for him to go all out. However, Sha Ma Xiong's strength was not weak. He took the initiative to attack Qin Yu. The demonic aura on his body surged as he threw a punch at Qin Yu. Facing Sha Ma Xiong's attack, Qin Yu slashed down with his long Jiani sword. In an instant, a sword edge that was dozens of feet long slashed across. The space seemed to be cut apart instantly, showing signs of collapse. Facing Qin Yu's sword, Sha Mo Xiong did not retreat. His fist fiercely collided with Qin Yu's sword. After a loud bang, a black shadow was sent flying. This black shadow was Sha Mo Xiong. After one collision, Sha Mo Xiong was completely at a disadvantage. His body slammed into the ground with a loud bang. Smoke and dust rose in all directions. After crashing through a mountain, Sha Mo Xiong came to a stop. A long mark was left on the ground. Qin Yu seemed to have gained the upper hand in this attack. However, he didn't seem to be too happy. He took a step forward and arrived above Sha Ma Xiong. At the same time, Sha Ma Xiong slowly stood up from the dust and lifted his head to look at Qin Yu. He sneered and said, "Don't underestimate me. Interesting. Human race's holy son. I didn't expect you to be hiding your strength." The two of them had already exchanged hundreds of blows. However, the power of the sword just now was more than twice as strong as before. Sha Ma Xiong was caught off guard and suffered a loss. Qin Yu did not deny Sha Ma Xiong's words. He only said indifferently, "Aren't you the same?" Qin Yu was indeed hiding his strength, and so was Sha Ma Xiong. As soon as Qin Yu finished speaking, Sha Ma Xiong soared into the air and arrived in front of Qin Yu with a smile on his face. "Ha! Interesting. Didn't you say that we should just go through the motions?" Sha Ma Xiong said as if he was chatting with a friend. Previously, when the two of them had just fought, Qin Yu did say that they should just go through the motions. When Sha Ma Xiong said this, there was a hint of mockery in his tone. It was as if he was saying that Yi Xuan meant well, but his hands didn't mean anything at all. Hearing Sha Ma Xiong's words, Qin Yu smiled and said, "Actually, I really wanted to bluff my way through, but it seems like it's impossible this time. At least, it's like that on our side. Can't you see that the old men in my family are all fired up?" The old men that Qin Yu was referring to were naturally the various saints. At this moment, the various saints had already engaged in a fierce battle with the demon saints. The saints, who were usually of noble status and were revered, were now locked in a fierce battle. As he spoke, Qin Yu and Sha Mo Xiong glanced at the saints who were engaged in an intense battle. Their battle had already reached a point where they would not stop until one of them died. They had already gone berserk. The smile on Sha Mo Xiong's face didn't fade as he laughed loudly. "That's true. Look at the old men in my family. They should be really fired up from the battle. If we do this half-heartedly, we really can't justify it. Since that's the case, let's bring out our true abilities." Hearing that, Qin Yu smiled and didn't answer. At the same time, dense black demonic chi spread out from Sha Mo Xiong's body. Following the appearance of this black demonic aura, Sha Mo Xiong's body also underwent a transformation. Two huge black wings grew out from his back. Numerous imprints also appeared on his greenish-black skin. These imprints covered his entire body, just like tattoos. The imprints gradually covered Sha Mo Xiong's entire body, and the pair of wings on his back slowly unfurled. At the same time, Sha Mo Xiong's aura suddenly skyrocketed. The invisible aura actually set off a gust of wind. Qin Yu used his hands to cover his eyes as the gust of wind blew past, and the smile on his face didn't fade as he looked at Sha Xiong, whose appearance had changed drastically. You demons are truly one scarier than the other. How troublesome. Although he said that, his expression didn't change at all. As Chen Yu's voice fell, the gust of wind dissipated. At the same time, Sha Xiong said in a deep voice, "Demon race, great demonic body." Sha Xiong's transformation was a kind of remarkable ability of the demon race. It was called the Great Demonic Body, and it was extremely terrifying. As a bloodline remarkable ability, the Great Demonic Body wasn't something that every demon could use. Although the transformation of the Great Demonic Body was related to the power of the bloodline power of the demon race was very different from the bloodline power of the beast race. For humans, the bloodline power of the beast race was the most understood. However, the bloodline power of the demon race was different from that of the beast race. As everyone knew, the beast race was divided into many branches, such as the dragon race, the tiger race, the phoenix Huangyi race, and so on. These demonic beasts belonged to different branches, and there was a huge difference in the power of their bloodlines. For example, those mixed-blood demonic beasts couldn't reach the height of the dragon race no matter how hard they tried because the power of their bloodline was too weak. However, the demon race was different. Although there were countless tribes in the demon race, there was no difference in the power of their bloodline. Every demon race was born with the same power of their bloodline. The strength of the demon race was actually determined by the degree of awakening of the power of their bloodline. The more power of their bloodline that could be awakened, the stronger their strength and cultivation would be. This was the difference between the bloodline power of the demon race and the beast race. As a demon son, Sha Xiong's bloodline power had naturally awakened a lot. The fact that he could use the Great Demonic Body at this time was a kind of proof. In the northern demon continent, the only demons who could use the Great Demonic Body were the demon sons, except for the demon saint and a few half-step saints. Only they could use the Great Demonic Body of the demon race. His aura was majestic and terrifying. Looking at Chen Yu, Sha Xiong said, "It's rare for me to go through so much trouble to use the great demon body of my demon race. Shouldn't you give me something in return? Otherwise, wouldn't it be too boring?" Alas, it's really troublesome. Hearing Sha Xiong's words, Chen Yu sighed lightly. However, as soon as his voice fell, a faint power of law and a strong sword intent suddenly erupted around Chen Yu's body. The law of wind and the perfect sword intent were only one step away from breaking through to the domain realm. At this time, Chen Yu seemed to have really revealed his fangs. Feeling these two palpitating powers, the fighting intent in Sha Xiong's eyes skyrocketed again. However, this was not the end. Just after the law of wind and the perfect sword intent erupted, another power of law appeared around Chen Yu's body. It was the law of gold. Seeking collection, seeking monthly votes, seeking recommendation. Chapter 890. The law of wind, the law of gold, and the sword intent that had reached the great perfection realm. Chen Yu finally displayed his strength as the first holy son of the ancient saint sect. His aura continued to soar. In response, Sha Xiong's battle intent continued to soar. The human in front of him did not disappoint him. After displaying the great demon body, Sha Xiong also raised his strength to the extreme. Almost at the same time, the two of them began to fight again. Under the enhancement of the great demon body, Sha Xiong's strength and speed were far superior to before. After all, this was the most powerful ability of the demon race. Taking a step forward, his body turned into an afterimage. Facing Sha Xiong's great demon body, Chen Yu's speed was not slow either. The law of wind had a great enhancement to his speed. The two of them fought in the air. Outsiders could not see their movements at all. The long sword in Chen Yu's hand was constantly slashing out. Every time the sword fell, there was a sharp sword edge. The law of wind increased Chen Yu's speed, while the law of gold and the great perfection realm sword intent increased Chen Yu's attack power by a lot. The law of metal was a law energy with extremely powerful offensive power, and Qin Yu's comprehension of the law of metal was extremely deep. The two of them were locked in a fierce battle. For a moment, no one had the upper hand. While Qin Yu and Sha Moxiong were fighting, Xiao Chen and Sha Mo were also fighting fiercely on the other side of the battlefield. At the same time, Sha Mo was displaying the great demon body like his brother. The two huge wings on his back were constantly flapping. Facing Sha Mo, Xiao Chen was also going all out. He displayed the law of force and law of speed, the great perfection realm sword intent, and the tempered battle body. Compared to the battle between Qin Yu and Sha Moxiong, the battle between Xiao Chen and Sha Mo was also extremely fierce. Facing the demon son of the demon race for the first time, Xiao Chen had to admit that Sha Mo was indeed extraordinary. Compared to the other demon race, Sha Mo was indeed very powerful. At least, after such a long battle, Xiao Chen did not have the upper hand. He had to admit that Sha Mo was very strong. At the same time, the strength that Xiao Chen had displayed had shocked Sha Mo. Originally, Sha Mo he looked down on the human race. In his eyes, the human race was a lowly and weak race. At least, none of the human race warriors that Sha Mo he had killed before could enter his eyes. They couldn't even withstand one move from him. They were too weak. However, after facing Xiao Chen, Sha Mo had to admit that the human in front of him was indeed very powerful. He wasn't any weaker than him, the son of the devil race. For a moment, Sha Mo's view of the human race changed. Both of them were shrouded in a thick fighting spirit, and at the same time, the entire Zhongtian station was completely engulfed in a fierce battle. The demon race's onslaught was fierce, and the human race cultivators in the Zhongtian station were fighting back with all their might, not giving the demon race the slightest chance. The battle in the Zhongtian station was incomparably fierce. Although the other 5 stations were also under attack by the demon race, compared to the Zhongtian station, they weren't under too much pressure. Originally, the demon race's target was the Zhongtian station. The other 5 stations were just feints. Therefore, whether it was the number of people or the intensity of the attack, they were far inferior to the Zhongtian station. The battle was still ongoing. On the other side, in the central command center, Randeng Kozai and the other old ancestors were gathered together, listening to the continuous battle reports. By now, the 4 of them had already guessed the demon race's target. Besides the Zhongtian station, the other 5 stations are not in any danger. The demon race's attack is not fierce. However, the Zhongtian station is currently in a difficult battle. From the looks of it, the demon race wants to swallow the Zhongtian station in one go. Randeng Kozai said as he looked at the battle reports in his hands. The Zhongtian station was indeed in a difficult battle. The demon race's attack was also extremely fierce, as if they wanted to take down the Zhongtian station in one go. Hearing Randeng Kozai's words, ancient Saint Ice Lotus said indifferently, "Has the demon race's old ancestor appeared?" "Not yet." Randeng Kozai replied softly. Since the demon race's old ancestor had yet to appear, the 4 of them would not act rashly. Now that they could see the demon race's true goal, there was no need to worry about the other 5 stations. The real problem now was the Zhongtian station. From the current situation, although the Zhongtian station was resisting with all its might, the demon race's attack was indeed too fierce. If this continued, the Zhongtian station was indeed doomed. One had to know that it had only been a little over 2 hours since the start of the battle, but the outskirts of the Zhongtian encampment had already been breached one after another. According to the initial estimates, at least 200,000 human cultivators had already fallen, and the number of injured was uncountable. The number of casualties was indeed not small. Send reinforcements. After thinking for a while, Randeng Kozai finally said. The other 5 stations were only feinted by the demon race, so there would not be much of a problem. Hearing Randeng Kozai's words, ancient Saint Ice Lotus, ancient Saint Mingjie, and ancient Saint Tianyang did not object and nodded in agreement. Subsequently, Randeng Kozai immediately sent an order to the saints in the Soaring Sky and Consort Sky stations, asking them to bring reinforcements to the Zhongtian station. They were ready to support the Zhongtian station. On the other side, the demon race was not relaxed at this time, including old ancestor Shielu, who was in charge of this battle. At this time, he was also paying close attention to the battle in the Zhongtian station, but he did not expect the human side to resist so tenaciously. The fierce battle had been going on for almost 4 hours, but the demon race army was still unable to break into the Zhongtian station. The tenacious resistance of the human race had completely exceeded Shielu's expectations. According to Shielu's expectations, it would not be difficult to take down the Zhongtian station with the help of 1,000,000 demon race troops, but the reality was not so. In the face of the 1,000,000-strong demon race army, the human race's tenacious resistance completely blocked their way forward. Once the two sides fell into a stalemate, there would only be one result, and that was to continuously increase the number of troops. Shielu was very clear about this. Moreover, Shielu had already guessed that the human race had probably seen through his plan. At this time, the human race's reinforcements were probably already on the way to the Zhongtian station. Once the human race's reinforcements arrived, Shielu would only have two choices. One was to retreat, and the other was to continue increasing the number of troops. However, no matter what, it was not the result that Shielu wanted. Walking back and forth in the courtyard, Shielu finally sighed softly and said, "The human race is indeed a race that cannot be underestimated." That's 2 chapters for today. Brothers, sorry, I'll make up for it tomorrow. Chapter 891. Shielu admitted that he had underestimated the human race. The tenacity of the human race exceeded Shielu's expectations. After fighting for almost 2 hours, the demon race army still failed to break into the Zhongtian station. This could be said to have completely ruined Shielu's plan. However, after investing so much power, Shielu was indeed unwilling to retreat now. Pacing back and forth, Shielu was silent for a moment. Then, he finally made a decision. He would send more troops to prevent the human race reinforcements from reaching the Zhongtian station. He had already paid a heavy price. Today, no matter what, he had to at least destroy the Zhongtian station. Otherwise, Shielu would never be reconciled. He didn't expect to destroy the Zhongtian station, but at least he had to destroy it. With this decision, Shielu immediately ordered another 500,000 demon race troops to the Zhongtian station. The purpose of this demon race army was to prevent the human race reinforcements from reaching the Zhongtian station at all costs. On the human race side, the Soaring Sky Station and the Tsong Heaven Station each sent 300,000 troops to support the Zhongtian station, while the demon race also sent 500,000 troops to stop them. The war escalated again. After issuing the order to continue sending more troops, Shielu sighed softly. After this battle, Shielu seemed to have predicted that this battle between the demon race and the human race would not end easily. He once thought that with the warlike nature of the demon race, they could easily conquer the Sky River continent, but now it seemed that this idea was a bit naive. The human race was not a weak race that could be trampled on. The battle was still going on, and the battle between Xiao Chen and Sha Mo had also reached its most intense stage. Both of them were going all out, and they couldn't remember how many moves they had exchanged, but so far, neither of them had the upper hand. What shocked Sha Mo was that Xiao Chen's physical body was not weaker than his. A human actually had a physical body that was not weaker than that of the demon race. This was indeed embarrassing. In a head-on clash, Sha Mo's physical body had no advantage at all. After a long battle, Sha Mo had to admit that Xiao Chen's strength was beyond his expectations. Intense battles were taking place on all 4 battlefields. Regardless of whether it was the human race or the demon race, both sides were constantly losing people. The casualties were extremely tragic. With the passage of time, both sides of the battle paid a heavy price. On the other side, the human reinforcements from the Soaring Sky Station and the Zhongtian Station were blocked by the demon army when they were 100 miles away from the Zhongtian Station. Once again, a great battle broke out between the two sides. The demon race did not hesitate to stop the reinforcements, while the human race did everything they could to break through the demon race's blockade, hoping to reinforce the Zhongtian army as soon as possible. By now, the battle situation was very clear, and the devil race's goal was no longer a secret. This time, the devil race had launched a large-scale attack, all for the sake of taking down the Zhongtian base. As such, one could imagine the current state of the Zhongtian base. The reinforcements sent by both sides were fiercely fighting, and the ones in charge of leading the reinforcements were the 10 human race saints from the Soaring Sky Station and the Tsong Heaven Station. During the fierce battle with the demon race saints, one of the saints immediately reported the situation to Randang Kozai and the other 3 old ancestors. The human reinforcements were being obstructed by the demon race. After receiving the news, Ancient Sage Randang and the other 3 sat together and looked at the other 3. Ancient Sage Randang asked, "It seems that the devil race is determined to take down the Zhongtian camp. What should we do now? Give up the Zhongtian camp, or continue to reinforce?" The 600,000 soldiers from the Soaring Sky Station and the Tsong Heaven Station were blocked by the devil race, so the old ancestors only had 2 choices. One was to give up the Zhongtian camp and let the humans retreat to the other 5 ancestral lands. The second was to continue to reinforce and protect the Zhongtian camp at all costs. Hearing Randang Kozai's words, Prime Saint Tianyang replied without hesitation. "We cannot give up the Zhongtian camp. Otherwise, the eastern side of the Sacredine sect will be completely exposed to the devil race. The devil race can break through the Sacredine province from the east at any time to the other 3 provinces. Therefore, the Zhongtian camp must be defended. The Zhongtian camp could not be abandoned because its geographical location was too important. Without the Zhongtian camp, the human race would not be able to restrict the devil race to the Sacredine province. At that time, the flames of war would spread to the entire China continent. This was the situation that Randang Kozai and the other old ancestors did not want to see. After all, once the flames of war spread to the entire China continent, the casualties of the human race would be immeasurable. Don't forget, there were still many people in the human race who didn't have a cultivation base. Once those people were exposed in front of the devil race, they would be slaughtered. It was impossible for them to have the slightest resistance. At that time, the China continent would definitely be flooded with blood and bones. We cannot give up the Zhongtian camp. Hearing Prime Saint Tianyang's words, Prime Saint Ice Lotus and Prime Saint Mengjia also agreed. Yes, we cannot give up the Zhongtian camp. Ancient Saint Mengjia and Ancient Saint Ice Lotus chimed in. Hearing their words, Ancient Saint Randang nodded slightly in agreement. In truth, there was no need for the 3 of them to say anything. Ancient Saint Randang knew the importance of the Zhongtian station, and he knew that they couldn't give up on it. Therefore, after hearing the 3's words, Randang Kozai immediately decided that the Gentian camp, Quenching Heaven camp, and Cheng Heaven camp would dispatch another 1 million troops to reinforce the Zhongtian camp. No matter what, the Zhongtian camp must be protected. The old ancestors' orders were quickly conveyed to the saints in the 3 camps. After receiving the old ancestors' orders, the Gentian camp, Quenching Heaven camp, and Cheng Heaven camp also dispatched troops at once. A total of 15 saints led the troops and rushed to the Zhongtian camp. This was the second reinforcement of the Zhongtian camp. At this point, this battle could almost be said to have developed into a full-scale war. At the same time, in the demon race's base camp, Sha Yilu, who received the second reinforcement from the human race, made the final decision to not continue to send reinforcements. Through the demon race's secret method, he told the demon race saints attacking the Zhongtian camp to kill as many human race cultivators as possible within 2 hours. After 2 hours, regardless of the result, they were to retreat immediately. It was already very difficult to take down the Zhongtian camp, and Sha Yilu did not intend to start a full-scale war with the human race now. At the same time, with the second reinforcement of the human race, it was extremely unwise to continue to attack the Zhongtian camp. Therefore, Sha Yilu issued the final order to retreat. However, before retreating, they still had to exhaust the strength of the Zhongtian camp as much as possible. Seeking collection, seeking monthly votes, seeking recommendations. Chapter 892. Xia Yilu completely gave up the idea of destroying the human clan's Zhongtian station in one fell swoop. Instead, he decided to weaken the strength of the Zhongtian station as much as possible. When the demon saints who were in the midst of the fierce battle received Xia Yilu's order, they were unwilling, but there was nothing they could do. They had indeed done their best and attacked from all sides, wanting to destroy the human clan's Zhongtian station in one fell swoop. Unfortunately, the human clan's resistance was beyond their expectations. Until now, they had not been able to break through the human clan's defenses and rush into the Zhongtian station. Of course, the demon clan was unwilling to give up. On the other hand, the human clan had suffered great losses. In just a few hours, nearly a quarter of the human clan cultivators in the Zhongtian station had died, and there were countless people who were still holding on despite being injured. It could be said that although the cultivators in the Zhongtian station were still trying their best to resist the demon clan, the overall strength of the Zhongtian station had indeed been weakened a lot after this battle. It was basically crippled and had to be replenished with more cultivators to restore the strength of the Zhongtian station. Up until now, both sides had been wrestling in blood. This was also the first time the two sides had come into direct contact since the invasion of the demon clan. Saints, half-saints, holy sons, and prospective holy sons were all fighting with all their might, and more people were dying. At the same time, after receiving Xia Yilu's final order, the demon clan saints went completely crazy. There were only 2 hours left. In 2 hours, the human race's reinforcements would arrive. Before that, Xia Yilu's order was to wipe out as many survivors of the Zhongtian encampment as possible, completely crippling the encampment. The fierce battle continued. Like the others, Xiaochen and Xiaomo's battle had almost reached a point where both sides were injured. They did not hold back at all. Up until now, both Xiaochen and Xiaomo had suffered numerous injuries, and their clothes had long been dyed red with blood. Even so, neither of them had any intention of retreating. This was a battle that did not allow the slightest retreat. Even if they died, they could not take a step back. Xiaochen knew this, and so did Xiaomo. Xiaomo's face was no longer as frivolous and arrogant as before. At this time, he looked dignified. It was no exaggeration to say that Xiaochen was the strongest opponent he had ever encountered in his life. In the same realm, even Xiaomo's 3 elder brothers were no match for him, but Xiaochen was also at the completion of the Tao Master realm. However, Xiaochen had forced Xiaomo. He had always thought that he was invincible in the same realm, but now, he had finally met his match. After a series of fierce battles, Xiaomo recognized Xiaochen from the bottom of his heart, because Xiaochen was the first person who could fight him to a standstill in the same realm. Because of his outstanding talent from a young age, Xiaomo was deeply doted on by old ancestor Xia Yilu. Since young, Xia Yilu had given Xiaomo the best guidance and the best cultivation environment. He doted on Xiaomo far more than his 3 brothers. It was also because of Xia Yilu's doting that Xiaomo had been arrogant since he was young. He did not care about anyone, including his 3 elder brothers. In Xiaomo's heart, his 3 elder brothers would be surpassed by him sooner or later. Xiaomo had no doubt about this. Xiaomo, who was arrogant, regretted not having met Xiaochen earlier. It was lonely to be at the top, and even more lonely to have no opponent. Now that he met Xiaochen, Xiaomo felt that the opponent of his life had finally appeared. Xiaomo's next goal was to defeat the human in front of him. One day, he would definitely defeat Xiaochen. Xiaomo thought so in his heart, but his hands did not stop moving. He was still fighting fiercely with Xiaochen. However, at this time, Xiaomo's mood changed. Xiaomo felt unprecedentedly refreshed while fighting with Xiaochen. At this moment, Xiaomo had forgotten about the demon race and the human race. He only wanted to defeat the human in front of him. Like Xiaomo, Xiaochen's current thoughts were the same. In the same realm, Sha Mo was the first opponent that Xiao Chen could not defeat even after using all his skills. He admitted that the Holy Sons of the Sky River continent were very strong, but for a long time, the cultivation of the Holy Sons was higher than Xiao Chen, so there was no chance for them to fight in the same realm. However, if his cultivation caught up with the Holy Sons, Xiao Chen was confident that he would not be weaker than them. In a battle of the same realm, Xiao Chen would not lose to anyone. And now, facing Sha Mo, the two of them were in the same realm, and their combat power was almost the same. It was difficult to determine the winner. Xiao Chen also had a different feeling toward Sha Mo. Heroes cherished heroes. After all, at the level of Xiao Chen and Sha Mo, it was very difficult to find a good opponent. Ordinary people were simply not worthy of their attention. Because of this change in form, the two people in the fierce battle gradually showed a smile on their faces. "Ha, human, you are very good. I will remember you. Do you dare to tell me your name?" After fighting for so long, the two of them still did not know each other's name. Hearing this, Xiao Chen did not hide it and said straightforwardly, "Why not? I am the quasi-holy son of the ancient sacred sect, Xiao Chen." Quasi-holy son? Ha, it seems that you humans also have people who don't know what's good for you. Is a person like you not qualified to be the holy son of the human race? It's simply a joke. Hearing Xiao Chen say that he was only a quasi-holy son, this made Sha Mo a little unhappy. He was unhappy that the human saints did not know what was good for them. Someone who could fight with him to a standstill in the same realm had not become the holy son of the human race. It was simply a joke. Or rather, it was an insult to him. After all, Xiao Chen was someone he recognized. Just as Sha Mo finished speaking, the demon race saints gave the order to retreat. The fierce battle had already lasted for close to 10 hours, from dawn to dusk. After an entire day of bloody battle, the demon race finally chose to retreat. Hearing the saints' order to retreat, Sha Mo also took the initiative to pull away from Xiao Chen. At the same time, Qin Shiru and the other two girls immediately came in front of Xiao Chen and looked at Sha Mo. The three girls were ready to attack, but they were stopped by Xiao Chen. The three girls were not a match for Sha Mo, and it was impossible for them to stop him. Seeing Xiao Chen stop the three girls, Sha Mo laughed and said, "Xiao Chen, I look forward to fighting with you again next time. Remember, my name is Sha Mo, ha." With that, Sha Mo turned and retreated with the demon race army. Looking at Sha Mo's back, Xiao Chen smiled and said to himself, "Sha Mo, the demon race's demon son? Next time, I will definitely fight with you to my heart's content." Begging for collection, begging for monthly votes, begging for recommendations. Chapter 893. After fighting for an entire day, from dawn to dusk, the entire Zhongtian camp seemed to have turned into hell in an instant. At this point, the demon race finally retreated. However, the human race cultivators in the Zhongtian camp did not pursue. It was not that they did not want to, but that they did not have the ability to. Although they had successfully blocked the demon race's attack, the Zhongtian camp had also paid a heavy price. Almost everyone was exhausted and did not have the strength to pursue the demon race. They could only watch as the demon race retreated. It was only at this moment that the saint experts in charge of the Zhongtian camp gave the order to count the casualties and clean up the battlefield. The battle had come to an end for the time being. Not long after, the reinforcements from the Gingtian, Quenching, and Qingtian camps arrived at the Zhongtian camp. As for the reinforcements from the Soaring Sky and Consort Sky camps, because of the demon race's retreat, they had already returned to their respective camps. With the demon race's retreat, the crisis was temporarily resolved. With the reinforcements from the Gingtian, Quenching, and Qingtian camps arriving, the task of cleaning up the battlefield was naturally much easier. However, the reinforcements from the three camps had not personally experienced the bloody battle in the Zhongtian camp. When they began to clean up the battlefield, they were completely shocked by the scene before them. Although they had not personally experienced it, just from the corpses left on the battlefield, it was not difficult for them to imagine what kind of bloody battle had taken place in the Zhongtian camp not long ago. It could be said that besides the main camp of the Zhongtian camp that had not been attacked, the entire camp had been turned into a mountain of corpses and a sea of blood. The corpses could be piled up into a small mountain, and blood had gathered into a small red stream that continued to flow in all directions. It was not only the corpses of the human race cultivators, but many of the demon race cultivators had also died in this battle. At the same time, in addition to those who had died, the number of injured was even greater. For a time, the Zhongtian camp did not relax because of the end of the battle. On the contrary, it became even busier. There were constantly people who were seriously injured who needed help, and at this time, the healing pills were constantly being used up like flowing water. Due to the enormous consumption of various healing pills, the number of pills stored in the central sky encampment was quickly depleted. As such, they could only mobilize more healing pills from the other 5 encampments to aid the human cultivators on hand. At the same time, the alchemists in the 3 great provinces behind them once again received orders from the front lines, ordering them to work day and night to produce more pills and transport them to the front lines. The constant consumption of pills, cleaning up the battlefield, treatment of the injured, etc., this series of tasks were all carried out in an orderly manner. Of course, this had nothing to do with Xiaochen. After this battle, Xiaochen and the others' injuries, Xiao and the others. Xiao. Relying on the strong physical body of the tempered battle body, Xiaochen was not in any danger and would be able to recover after a few days of rest. Chenling, Longqing, and Qin Shuru were the same. Although they had all suffered different degrees of injuries, fortunately, their lives were not in danger. After 3 consecutive days, the Zhongtian encampment finally finished dealing with the aftermath. The corpses of the deceased were all collected and sent back to the other 3 great prefectures, to their respective loved ones, so that they could rest in peace. The unfortunate human race cultivators who had died could be buried in peace, but the demon race cultivators' corpses were not treated this way. They were all burned to ashes. After 3 days, the cleanup work was basically done. However, the number of casualties caused the various saint experts to frown deeply. They did not have accurate figures earlier, but from the looks of it now, the price that the Zhongtian camp had to pay in this battle was indeed unexpected. On the 4th day after the battle, Prime Saint Tianyang, as the representative of the 4 ancestors, personally came to the Zhongtian camp. He summoned all the saints and asked about the battle. All the saints gathered in the main hall of the Zhongtian camp. Prime Saint Tianyang sat at the head of the table and looked at the saints below with a solemn expression. "Tell me, how are our casualties in this battle?" "Ancestor, the casualties in this battle were disastrous. After counting, we lost 200,000 people in the Zhongtian camp. As for the injured, almost all of the Zhongtian camp cultivators who participated in the battle were injured, but the severity of their injuries varied. Among them, 150,000 people were either disabled or damaged in their cultivation due to their injuries. They are no longer suitable for the upcoming battle and are being sent back to the other 3 prefectures." Hearing Prime Saint Tianyang's words, the Tianfeng saint also spoke with a solemn expression. In this battle, the Zhongtian camp had lost almost half of its combat strength and was indeed crippled. 200,000 people died, and 150,000 people were too injured to continue fighting on the front line. Hearing the Tianfeng saint's words, Prime Saint Tianyang pondered for a moment before asking again. "What about the demon race? How great were their losses?" The Zhongtian camp had suffered disastrous losses, but how great were the demon race's losses? Prime Saint Tianyang asked the question that he was most concerned about, but as soon as these words came out, the faces of all the saints present became even more solemn, and the entire hall fell into a brief silence. After a long while, the Tianfeng saint spoke again in a solemn voice. "The demon race has lost 80,000 people. As for the injured, we have no way of accurately capturing them, but we estimate that the number of seriously injured should not exceed 50,000. The Zhongtian camp had lost 200,000 people, but the demon race had only lost 80,000 people, and the number of seriously injured should not exceed 50,000. It was worth mentioning that the seriously injured mentioned by the Tianfeng saint were the demon race members who could no longer participate in the upcoming battle because of their injuries. As for the lightly injured, there was almost no need to capture them. After all, being lightly injured did not affect their combat strength. After a period of recuperation, they would be able to fully recover and still display great combat strength. Hearing the Tianfeng saint's words, Randeng Koziai's face also turned ugly. The human race had lost 350,000 people, which was 350,000 people. As for the demon race, they had lost 80,000 people and 50,000 were seriously injured, which added up to a total of 130,000 people. The difference in casualties between the two sides was more than double. In other words, the human race had to sacrifice 2 human race cultivators in exchange for 1 demon race cultivator's life. Previously, everyone had guessed that the human race's individual strength was inferior to the demon race, but when they saw the result, they still found it hard to accept. Sighing softly, Prime Saint Tianyang said, "The casualty rate has more than doubled. It seems that the following battle is not optimistic. Please collect, please vote, please recommend." End of chapter. Chapter 894. After this battle, the weakness of the human race that was inferior to the demon race was completely exposed. The ratio of casualties between the two sides was completely incomparable. With such a huge difference in the ratio of casualties, if the human race wanted to successfully resist the invasion of the demon race, they needed more people to participate in the battle. To put it bluntly, in the face of 3 million demon race, the human race needed at least 6 million people to have a chance of winning. This point made the various saints, as well as Heavenly Sun Prime Sage and the other old ancestors, feel heavy. After discussing some matters after the battle in the main hall, Heavenly Sun Prime Sage and the various saints went to visit the human race cultivators who were about to leave the front lines due to serious injuries. Although these people managed to keep their lives in this battle, they were basically completely crippled. They either lost an arm or a leg, and some of them even lost their cultivation. These people no longer had the ability to continue fighting, and it would be difficult for them to achieve anything in the future. In the following days, they could only return to their respective families to retire. For these people, Heavenly Sun Prime Sage gave them very generous compensation. At least in the future, they didn't have to worry about money and could live a stable life. A lot of spirit stones and gold coins were given to these people. As the days passed, peace gradually returned to the Central Sky Sect's encampment. Those who had died or were severely injured began to leave the Sacredine Prefecture in batches, returning to their respective families. At the same time, from the other 3 prefectures, new human race cultivators were constantly being transferred to the Sacredine Prefecture. After this battle, the Central Sky Station suffered a great loss. At least 300,000 people were needed to maintain the station's strength, and these 300,000 people were naturally transferred from the other 3 provinces in time. While the human race was sending reinforcements to the Sacredine province, the demon race also sent reinforcements through the Blood Gate, and their numbers were even greater. Half a month later, according to the information obtained by the human race, the demon race sent at least 1 million reinforcements to the Tiana continent. As a result, the number of demon race cultivators at this time had reached 4 million. Seeing the number of demon race cultivators increasing, the various old ancestors were also burning with anxiety. Moreover, in addition to the constant reinforcements of the demon race, the various old ancestors were also concerned about another problem, and that was Shaosheng. Back then, Shaosheng had begun to rebuild his body with the help of the 3 holy sects. He had been in seclusion for a long time now, but there was still no sign of him coming out. The ancestors were a little anxious, but there was nothing they could do. Rebuilding a physical body was an extremely difficult task and could only be done slowly. However, once Shaosheng succeeded in rebuilding his physical body, it would definitely be a great help to the human tribe. Therefore, Randan Koziai and the others all hoped that Xiao Xin could finish his closed-door training as soon as possible. After the big battle ended, the Holy Yin province regained its peace. Although small-scale battles would break out almost every day, a big battle like the one in the Zhongtian camp did not appear again. However, although the sacred Yin prefecture seemed to have calmed down, everyone knew that this was only temporary, because whether it was the human race or the demon race, they were both preparing for an even larger scale battle. The two sides didn't make any moves to fight, just stared at each other. During this time, Sha Yilu and the other three old ancestors of the demon race were also discussing the next strategic deployment. According to one of the old ancestors of the demon race should not continue to fight with the human race in the Holy Yin province. After descending to the Sky River continent, the demon race also actively tried to understand the situation of the Sky River continent. Although they only had a rough idea, the demon race already knew that the Sky River continent was divided into 4 continents. And now, the Holy Yin province where the demon race was located was actually specially isolated by the human race to be used as a battlefield. It could be said that the human race in the Holy Yin province were the elites of the entire Sky River continent. According to the old ancestor of the demon race, instead of fighting the human race's elites in the Holy Yin province, it was better to find a way to break through the blockade of the human race and directly go to the other 3 continents. The human race had been transferred to the Holy Yin province. At this time, if the demon race could attack the other 3 continents, the Sky River continent would definitely be in chaos, and the human race would have to take care of one thing and lose sight of the other. After all, many of the human race in the other 3 continents were ants without cultivation. Dealing with them was obviously much easier than dealing with the human race's elites in front of them. In the face of this old ancestor's proposal, Sha Yilu and the other 3 old ancestors refused without even thinking about it. Because of this, the 4 old ancestors of the demon race had a big quarrel. The old ancestor of the demon race who made the proposal was very angry at the rejection of Sha Yilu and the other 3 old ancestors. On this day, in Sha Yilu's residence, Sha Yilu was sitting in the back garden, drinking the unique wine of the demon race. In front of him stood his favorite descendant, Sha Mo. He had always been very satisfied with Sha Mo. With a faint smile on his face, Sha Yilu said, "Sit down, what are you standing there for?" Hearing Sha Yilu's words, Sha Mo didn't stand on ceremony. He sat opposite Sha Yilu and poured himself a glass of wine. Seeing this, Sha Yilu didn't say anything and just asked with a chuckle, "What do you think? I heard that you met an opponent this time?" "Yes, that human is very strong. In the same realm, it's difficult for us to determine the victor." Hearing this, Sha Mo didn't hide anything and nodded bluntly. Hearing this, the smile on Sha Yilu's face became even wider. Given the pride of his descendant, it seemed that the human had indeed gained his approval. In fact, in Sha Yilu's opinion, it was a good thing that Samohi could meet such a good opponent. At least, it wasn't a bad thing for his growth. Sha Yilu didn't continue to ask and changed the topic. This time, they proposed to launch a sneak attack on the other 3 continents, but I rejected it. Tell me your opinion. Sha Yilu actually asked for Sha Mo's opinion on such a big matter, which was enough to show that he thought highly of Sha Mo. Upon hearing this, Sha Mo seemed to have already known about this matter and spoke directly without hesitation. The Blue tribe has always been sinister and cunning. I don't like them. This time, Patriarch Blue proposed a sneak attack. I feel that he isn't worthy of being the patriarch of our demon race at all. In order to defeat a race, why would we use sneak attacks? Besides, the other 3 continents are full of ants of the human race. I'm not interested in ants. Instead of fighting with them, I prefer to fight with the elites of the human race. When Sha Mo said this, his tone was full of disdain as though he despised the patriarch of the demon race who proposed this plan. At the same time, these words also vividly displayed the arrogance in Sha Mo's heart. In order to defeat the human race, why would they need to use sneak attacks? If they wanted to win, they had to win fair and square. Begging for collection, begging for monthly votes, begging for recommendations. End of chapter. Chapter 895. The ancestor of the blue tribe that Shamo mentioned was called Bululing. He was one of the 4 ancestors of the demon race. At the same time, the blue tribe that he belonged to was one of the most powerful tribes in the northern demon continent. Unfortunately, the blue tribe was a little despicable and sinister. They were very much at odds with Shamo's tribe. In Shamo's opinion, since they were demons, they had to win fair and square no matter what. There was nothing to be proud of even if they won by threatening the human race with the lives of ants. Hearing Shamo's words, Shayilu nodded with a smile. That's right. This is my descendant. If we want to win, we have to win fair and square. Shayilu and Shamo scoffed at Bululing's plan. In their opinion, it was simply a disgrace to deal with the ants of the human race who had no cultivation. The demons were all warriors. Their opponents were the elites of the human race in front of them. As for the others, they didn't care about them at all. The demons were ferocious but also quite proud. This was vividly reflected in Shayilu and Shamo. However, compared to Shayilu and Shamo, the blue tribe didn't think so. At this time, in the courtyard where Bululing lived, the higher-ups of the blue tribe gathered together. Among them were naturally Bululing's descendants, the demon sons of the blue tribe. Compared to the Sha tribe, the blue tribe had fewer demon sons. There were only 3 of them. However, their strength couldn't be underestimated. At this time, Bululing gathered the higher-ups of the blue tribe. Naturally, he had something important to announce. In response, a young demon was sitting next to Bululing. This young man was called Bruling, and he was the most talented demon son of the blue tribe. Looking at his ancestor, Bruling said in a matter-of-fact tone, "Ancestor, is it our blue tribe's turn to make a move this time?" Those idiots of the Sha tribe paid such a huge price and still couldn't take down the human race's culmination station. As Bululing's favorite descendant, Bruling's personality was naturally very similar to Bululing's. He was sinister and cunning and didn't look like a demon son at all. The previous battle was initiated by Shailu, but it ended in failure. At this moment, Bululing was anxious about the blue tribe's higher-ups. Clearly, the blue tribe was preparing to make a move. Faced with Brufu's question, Bruling didn't hide anything. After all, everyone present was a high-ranking member of the Bru tribe and there was nothing to hide. Bruling immediately spoke bluntly. Bruling coldly snorted. "Humph, that old bastard Shailu is so stubborn. He insists on fighting head-on. He's so pedantic. Instead of fighting with the elites of the human race here, he might as well invade the human race's rear and kill them there. That way, the human race will be distracted." Bluling briefly explained his plan. At the same time, he scolded Shailu, feeling that Shailu was too pedantic. In Bluling's opinion, it was better to find an opportunity to break out of the encirclement and go directly to the human race's rear, which was the other 3 provinces, and kill them wantonly. In this way, the human elite troops at the front line would definitely lose their morale. When the time came, they would launch a general attack and defeat the human race in one fell swoop. What Bululing meant by massacre were those ordinary human beings with low cultivation or no cultivation at all. Bululing knew very well that these human elites at the front line must have family members and loved ones at the rear. Once their family members and loved ones were killed, their morale would be greatly affected and that would be the best opportunity for the demon race to attack. It had to be said that Bluling's plan was indeed despicable. It was no wonder that Shailu despised him so much. Let alone a noble race like the devil race, even the human race wouldn't be able to do such a thing. You're a powerhouse, but you're actually slaughtering defenseless people. Isn't this a humiliation? However, Bluling didn't take this action as a humiliation at all. Perhaps in his opinion, as long as he could win, he could use any means. It was also because Bluling targeted the ordinary humans at the rear of the human race that he didn't need too many people to launch a surprise attack. 10,000 demon warriors would be enough. As long as these 10,000 demon warriors could break through the blockade of the human race and successfully go to the rear of the human race, they would definitely be able to set off a bloodbath with their strength. After all, they weren't facing the human elite troops, but the ordinary humans who couldn't put up any resistance at all. Of course, it wasn't that easy to break through the human race's line of defense. In order to prevent the demon race from breaking through, the human race had made preparations in the Serene province. Therefore, in order to break through the Serene province, the demon race still had to make some preparations. First, they had to launch a frontal attack to disrupt the human race's line of defense. It would be best if they could directly tear open a gap. In this way, the 10,000 warriors that Blueling had prepared could take advantage of the chaos to rush out of the Serene province and go straight to the rear of the human race. This time, Blueling's target wasn't the human race's military facilities. To put it bluntly, he was going to the other 3 provinces to cause trouble. His goal was to kill the ordinary humans and disrupt the morale of the human race's elite troops at the front line. Blueling actually targeted the ordinary humans during the battle between the 2 armies. After a discussion with the higher-ups of the Blue Tribe, Blueling didn't expect that a few saints of the Blue Tribe would actually raise objections. The meaning of these saints of the Blue Tribe was very clear. Although the demon race and the human race were at war now, it would be a humiliation for the demon race's warriors to kill the ordinary demons who had nothing to do with the human race. For the entire demon race, this was a disgrace. For the Blue Tribe, it was even more of a disgrace. The demon race's warriors should deal with the truly powerful elites of the human race, instead of slaughtering the defenseless ordinary humans. These saints directly withdrew their objections. However, Blueling flew into a rage and directly kicked these demon race saints out of the battle sequence, telling them that they didn't have to participate in this battle anymore. Ignoring the objections of these demon race saints, Blueling quickly finalized the battle plan. At the same time, the Blue Tribe's forces also began to be mobilized. Just as Blueling's side began to take action, Shaielu and the other 3 demon race patriarchs gathered together. Shaielu directly spoke to the other 2 patriarchs. Blueling's actions are simply a disgrace to the demon race. I disagree. Begging for collection, begging for monthly votes, begging for recommendations. End of this chapter. Chapter 896. In the face of Bruce Ling's plan, Shaielu disagreed. At this time, apart from Bruce Ling, the 3 great demon ancestors were gathered together. Shaielu did not hide the contempt in his heart and directly refused. Targeting ordinary humans who had no ability to resist was definitely not something a demon warrior should do. When he was in the northern demon continent, Bruce Ling was known for his insidious cunning. However, at that time, because everyone was trapped in the northern demon continent, Shaielu was too lazy to care about him. He just despised him from the bottom of his heart. But now, in the war between the demon race and the human race, Bruce Ling actually wanted to attack ordinary humans who had no cultivation base. This directly touched Shaielu's bottom line. In Shaielu's heart, Bruce Ling's actions were a disgrace to the demon race. As natural warriors, how could the demon race do such a thing? If after defeating the elite army of the human race and completely occupying the Sky River continent, Shaielu would never say anything if Bruce Ling wanted to slaughter those humans who had no cultivation base. After all, if the human race was defeated, then they would naturally become the spoils of war of the demon race. They could only be disposed of by the demon race. At that time, they would be killed. Looking at the situation now, the 2 armies were still fighting. If Bruce Ling wanted to attack ordinary humans as a way to win, Shaielu would never agree. Hearing Shaielu's firm opposition, the other 2 demon ancestors also nodded in agreement. In the hearts of the demon race, as long as one was a warrior, whether it was a human or a demon, they should at least be respected, including their family. In the hearts of the demon race, a warrior should only die on the battlefield. Similarly, the opponent of a warrior should also be a warrior. The demon race was naturally warlike, but they did not have a strong character. The demon race worshipped the strong and despised the weak. This could be clearly seen from the wars launched by the demon race throughout history. Because there has never been a time when the demon race declared war on those weak races. Looking at the war of the demon race, every time, it was against a powerful race. The human race, the god race, the beast race, these big races have all fought with the demon race, and more than once. But except for these big races, the rest of the weak races have almost never been attacked by the demon race. The reason was very simple: they were too weak, and the demon race looked down on them. The demon race waged war not because they wanted to rule, but because they were naturally warlike. The three ancestors didn't agree with Bruce Ling's plan. In their opinion, with the strength of the demon clan, they could defeat the human clan even in a head-on battle. There was no need for them to do such a despicable thing. The three ancestors all objected, but the problem was that Bulu Ling had already made up his mind to do so, and the demons of the Blue Tribe, except for Bulu Ling's orders, couldn't be commanded by the other three ancestors at all. In that case, if they wanted to stop Buling, the three patriarchs would have to join forces with him. In that case, it would not be a good thing for the devil race. Moreover, although the other two patriarchs did not agree with Bruling's actions, they did not agree with the outbreak of internal strife in the demon clan. For the time being, there was really no good way to stop Bruling. After some discussion, Sha Yelu finally left in a huff. When he returned to his residence and saw that Sha Ma Xiong, Sha Mo, and the other two brothers were all there, Sha Yelu snorted coldly. This Bulu Ling is simply humiliating the demon clan. How can the warriors of the demon clan slaughter those ants without any cultivation? Isn't that a disgrace? Seeing that Sha Yelu was so angry, the four brothers looked at each other and didn't know what to say. Then, it was Sha Mo who asked about the matter. After hearing that the three patriarchs didn't support Buling but had no way to stop him, Sha Mo had an idea and said, "Patriarch, I do have a way to stop Buling. Oh, go ahead." Sha Yelu asked after hearing Sha Mo's words. "It's very simple. We just need to pass the news to the human clan. The human clan will take precautions in advance and Buling's plan will naturally not succeed. I'm willing to make a trip to the human clan's Zhongtian encampment and inform the human clan about this." Sha Mo volunteered and planned to go to the human clan's Zhongtian encampment alone to inform the human clan about this. However, Sha Ma Xiong and the other two brothers' expressions changed drastically when they heard Sha Mo's words. As the eldest brother, Sha Ma Xiong immediately reprimanded him. "This is simply nonsense. We are now in a period of war with the human clan. Fourth brother, aren't you going to the human clan's encampment alone?" "I don't agree." There was no room for discussion and Sha Ma Xiong directly objected. Hearing that, Sha Yelu looked at Sha Mo with interest and smiled. "Aren't you afraid that the human clan will kill you on the spot? How dare you go to the human clan's encampment alone?" Sha Mo's suggestion was indeed the best method. Sha Yelu also admitted this point. However, Sha Yelu was more curious about where Sha Mo's confidence came from to dare to go to the human clan's Zhongtian encampment alone. He believed that he knew his descendant very well. Sha Mo was definitely not acting on impulse. He was completely confident that he could escape unscathed. However, Sha Yelu couldn't figure out why the human clan would let Sha Mo go. Not to mention Sha Mo, in the current situation, even if Sha Yelu went to the human clan's encampment alone, he probably wouldn't be able to return. Facing his old ancestors' curiosity, Sha Mo he only smiled faintly and said, "Because I am a warrior, and there are also warriors in the human race. I believe that the warrior of the human race will not let me die in the Zhongtian camp like this. Therefore, on this trip, your child's life is absolutely safe." Sha Mo's confidence actually came from Xiao Chen. He knew that Xiao Chen wouldn't let him die in the Zhongtian encampment. This was the source of Sha Mo's confidence. Although they were opponents, the two of them had a feeling of mutual respect for each other. Since they valued each other so much, no matter if it was Sha Mo or Xiao Chen, they would naturally not let each other die so sullenly. A proud son of the heavens had to belong to a proud son of the heavens. Furthermore, Sha Mo didn't have any enmity towards the human clan. It could even be said that the human clan was indebted to him. there was no reason for the human clan to kill him. Hearing Sha Mo's words, Sha Moxiong and his brothers still didn't agree. However, Sha Yilu didn't say anything. After a long while, Sha Yilu finally spoke. Have you thought it through? This trip is very dangerous and you might not be able to return. Are you sure you can deal with the human clan? Yes, 100%. Hearing Sha Yilu's words, Sha Mo still replied confidently. Good, this is the strongest devil son of my Sha tribe. Going into the tiger's den alone. Good, don't worry. If anything happens to you, the entire Sha tribe will avenge you. Even if we have to die together, I will definitely raze the Zhongtian encampment to the ground. Sha Yilu suddenly laughed out loud. Begging for collection, begging for monthly votes, begging for recommendations. End of chapter. You're tuning into the Mythic Realms YouTube channel. Don't forget to subscribe and join us on this journey to catch the most captivating stories.